Chapter 169. Arrogant, this guy has quite a character. Even in front of a human king, he doesn't show any mercy. I quite like his character. On the high platform, the ninth commandery princess stared at the young man standing in the arena and chuckled. Su Chong, who had been standing behind her, saw the smile on the ninth commandery princess's face, and his face became gloomier. This was the first time he had seen the ninth commandery princess show such an appreciative smile. What made him even more unhappy was that the ninth commandery princess's smile was for Zhuowen. Bang! Inshualua slammed his hand on the tea table beside him. His eyes were filled with rage. If it were not for the rule that the experts of the older generation were not allowed to fight, he would have killed the arrogant young man in the arena. Father, leave this reckless little brat to me. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Ing Qianhua's feminine voice rang out slowly as he came to Inshualua's side. Qianhua, there's no need to show mercy. Cripple this arrogant boy for me. Inshualua's face was extremely gloomy. He grinned and said coldly. That's only natural. You should know that this little brat didn't just scold you, father. He even scolded me and big sister. In a while, I will properly educate this little brat. Ing Qianhua raised his orchid fingers and covered his mouth as he laughed. After he finished speaking, Ing Qianhua lightly stepped on the ground. His entire body was like a graceful swallow as he landed on the stage. Brat, do you think that you're invincible just because you have level 2 mental strength? You should know that even the strongest person in your city lord's mansion, Gu Xian, is no match for me. Do you think you can defeat me? Ing Qianhua looked down at Zhuowen condescendingly as he covered his mouth and sneered. A transvestite like you who is neither male nor female is quite confident. Just by looking at you, I can tell that you are a coward. Do you think that I will be afraid of trash like you? Zhuowen stood there quietly and said without any change in his expression. At this time, the audience was boiling again because Zhuowen had taken the initiative to appear in the arena. Many people looked at Zhuowen's back with some doubts. In their opinion, the strongest person in the city lord's mansion, Gu Xian, was defeated. Was it useful to send a young man whose cultivation was not as good as Gu Xian? It seems that the city lord's mansion has given up on themselves. Are they still holding on to their last hope? Although this young man is level 2 Arcanist Think Studio, Editor's Picks, Transvestite Arcanist, King Arcanist's Realm, Ing, Transvestite. I really don't understand what the City Lord Mansion is thinking. Gu Xian's defeat has already explained everything. Isn't sending this young man to his death? Voices of discussion instantly exploded in the audience. As the voices of discussion continued to grow, countless doubtful gazes were cast on the arena, on the figure of the young man who stood quietly on the arena. However, when the questioning voices from below the stage reached its peak, some of the forces from the main city of Rattan Armor City began to refute. Amidst this refutation, the recent rumors about Zhuowen in Rattan Armor City also began to spread. What do you guys know? Seriously speaking, young Master Zhuowen is the #1 expert of the younger generation in our Rattan Armor City. He has a record of killing a King Realm cultivator. Can those bastards from the Yin Sifting sect achieve this? It was unknown who shouted this sentence, but the audience instantly became silent. Whoosh! Whoosh! After the silence, countless gazes once again gathered on the arena, on the back of the young man. This young man had once killed a King Realm cultivator. Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? On the arena, Ing Qianhua also heard the words of the person who had just spoken. His feminine face was instantly stunned for a moment, but soon after, he covered his mouth and laughed loudly. His right hand, which was curled up like an orchid, pointed at Zhuowen and said mockingly, "Looks like the city lord's mansion has really declined. Now that you're about to lose, you actually made up such a ridiculous lie. Are you really so naive to think that you can win with a few fallacies?" When Ing Qianghua's words came out, the audience below the stage roared with laughter. Many people pointed at Zhuowen's back with disdain in their eyes. Ignoring the countless mocking gazes from below the arena, as well as Ing Qianghua's face full of mockery, Zhuowen cupped his hands towards Lingju, who had an indifferent expression on his face, and said indifferently, "Sir, can we start the battle now?" Ling Ju was stunned. He did not expect that the young man in front of him was not the slightest bit afraid when facing a half-step king realm cultivator. He could see that the indifference on the young man's face was not an act, but an indifference that came from the bottom of his heart. "If the two of you have no objections, the battle can naturally begin." As he spoke, Ling Ju waved his hand and said with an indifferent expression, "You're quite brave. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when I twist off your head later." Ying Qianghua licked his lips and said with a sinister smile, "Brat, if you can withstand one move from me, then you're quite capable. But in my opinion, you won't even be able to withstand one move, so you'd better die obediently." Ying Qianghua sneered. He stomped his foot and his entire body flew straight forward. The ear-piercing sound of wind breaking was like muffled thunder, exploding in the entire arena. When Ying Qianghua rushed straight towards Zhuowen like a storm, countless people below the arena also cast their gazes towards Zhuowen, who was not far away. However, the moment they saw Zhuowen, a trace of astonishment appeared in their eyes. This was because Zhuowen, who was standing on the arena, was actually standing there in a daze. He did not dodge or attack, as if he was scared silly and did not move at all. What's wrong with this brat? He was so arrogant and insufferably arrogant just a moment ago. Why is he not moving now? Could it be that he's scared silly? Looks like he's really a brat who only looks strong on the outside but is actually weak on the inside. Anyone can play with words, but this brat's mouth is so venomous. I'm afraid Ying Qianghua won't show any mercy. When they saw Zhuowen's stunned expression, the audience below the stage burst into loud laughter, as well as countless discussions that were filled with ridicule. But was Zhuowen really scared out of his wits like they said? The answer was of course no. It was just that Zhuowen was currently concentrating on activating the holy ice flame symbol. After the last battle with Lu Qingshang, Zhuowen was much more careful when activating the holy ice flame symbol. If he swaggered out the holy ice flame symbol, perhaps some knowledgeable people would recognize it. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. Once the holy ice flame symbol was exposed, Zhuowen's fate would be to become the enemy of the whole world. At that time, not only would the Zhuo family face a disaster, but it would also be difficult to find a place to stay. Zhuowen was very clear about how attractive the holy ice flame symbol was to those supreme experts, so unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not expose the holy ice flame symbol on his body. The method to conceal the holy ice flame symbol on the back of his hand naturally relied on Xiao Hei's help. The moment when Zhuowen stood there in a daze was actually Xiao Hei secretly casting a spell to conceal the holy ice flame symbol on the back of his hand. At this moment, Ying Qianghua had already arrived above Zhuowen's head. He glanced at the youth who was still in a daze and muttered to himself in a slightly bored manner, "I originally thought that you would be able to play with me for a while longer. Now, it seems like you're just a silver spear with a wax head. Since that's the case, I'll send you on your way." Speaking until here, Ying Qianghua suddenly waved both of his hands, and an endless amount of origin energy suddenly burst out from his body. As the origin energy continued to gather, a huge blood-red claw that was like a mountain condensed behind him. Farewell. Taking one last look at the youth below, Ying Qianghua's claw suddenly pressed down. Then, the huge blood-red claw poured down in torrents, and an endless amount of astral wind swept out as it fell, forming a huge tornado in the middle of the stage that shot straight to the horizon. Blood claw, kill! Rumble! It was as if countless huge thunderbolts had fallen. Immediately, the entire arena resounded. Invisible ripples accompanied the loud noise and spread out in all directions. Many of the martial warriors below the stage involuntarily retreated under the ripples. What a terrifying power! The blood claw that Ying Qianghua used this time was even stronger than the one he used to defeat Gu Xian. It seems that Zhuowen's corpse is already gone. The City Lord Mansion has really miscalculated. To actually send out such a weakling, I really don't know what City Lord Gu is thinking. Sigh. I didn't expect the Yin Sifting sect to defeat the City Lord Mansion this time. Does this mean that the Yin Sifting sect's strength will surpass the City Lord Mansion's? After the blood claw landed, sighs rang out one after another. The competition for a spot was not only a matter of honor, but also the allocation of resources. In the Origin Energy Tower battle, once a disciple entered the top 1,000 in the final ranking, they would receive a certain amount of resources from the House of Marquis Qin as a reward. Coincidentally, after the Yin Sifting sect obtained 3 spots in the last competition, one of their disciples miraculously entered the top 1,000 in the Origin Energy Tower and received a reward from the House of Marquis Qin. This was also the reason why the Yin Sifting sect was able to nurture 2 half-step Zhao King realm cultivators. On the high platform, Liu Tian's hands clenched. He didn't expect Zhuowen to stand there like a fool and allowing Qianghua to attack. This kind of situation was already beyond his expectations. Will Zhuowen be alright? Guyu covered her mouth with her jade-like hand. Her face turned incomparably pale as she asked in a trembling voice. Sigh. I'm afraid this fellow is doomed. Gu Xian, who was sitting on the far side, said with a sigh. His injuries were quite serious. He was well aware of the power of Ying Qianghua's blood claw. Even a low-grade spirit treasure, the diamond ring, would find it difficult to resist that kind of power. That was easy. This brat can't even withstand a single blow. Ying Qianghua slowly landed on the stage and cracked his neck with a faint smile. Ying Qianghua, your attack is really soft. It doesn't seem to hurt or even tickle my body. Just as Ying Qianghua's smile became even more brilliant, a voice slowly drifted over. The smile that was just about to blossom on his face instantly withered. Chapter 170. Defeated in one move. Sizzle sizzle. A charred sound slowly sounded over the entire arena. Immediately, a figure slowly stepped out from the dust. A heat that was difficult to hide suddenly rose over the entire space following the slow appearance of this figure. The surrounding air also began to boil like steam. Swoosh swoosh. Numerous gazes looked at this black human figure that had appeared. They involuntarily inhaled a breath of cold air when they saw this black human figure clearly. This was because they were shocked to discover that the surroundings of this human figure were actually covered by a dense black flame. The sudden rise in temperature was clearly caused by this black flame. This is the Nirvana demon flame. At the edge of the arena, Lingju, who originally had an indifferent expression, involuntarily muttered to himself with a slightly changed expression when his eyes stared at the black flame on the human figure's body. You are Zhuowen? Ying Qianghua's eyes hardened as he stared at the human figure in front of him, whose entire body was covered by the black flame. Who else can it be other than the old me? Damn transvestite, you had a great time fighting earlier, right? Now, it should be my turn. Zhuowen clenched his fist slightly. A spark-like black flame immediately shot out. Ying Qianghua's face twitched. For some unknown reason, he was able to sense that there was an extremely dangerous aura on Zhuowen's body at this moment. Although the aura on Zhuowen's body was only at the half-step to the corporeal yang stage, it still gave Ying Qianghua an extremely dangerous feeling. This kind of feeling did not originate from Zhuowen's body. Instead, it came from the strange black flame that adhered to the surface of Zhuowen's body. Although I don't know what the black flame on your body is, you are still far from defeating me. However, I'm afraid that you are still far from being able to defeat me. Your fate will ultimately be the same as Gu Xian's. Ying Qianghua quickly recovered his calm and laughed coldly. You will beat me until even your mother cannot recognize you in a while, you damn transvestite. Zhuowen did not wish to talk nonsense with Ying Qianghua. His feet suddenly stomped on the ground and an endless amount of black flame suddenly surged out from his body. The green rock under his feet gradually melted into liquid under the frightening temperature of the black flame. Whoosh! At this moment, Zhuowen was like a shooting star. His entire body was covered in black flames as he suddenly rushed towards Ying Qianghua. Wherever he passed, countless black sparks would burst forth like fireworks. Hearing Zhuowen's insulting words, Ying Qianghua's face immediately flushed red. These words were really a little vicious. Even his mother was scolded. Ing Xuelua's expression became extremely gloomy after hearing Zhuowen's curse. However, his eyes were filled with some fear as he looked at the Nirvana demon flame on the surface of the former's body. This flame should be the brat's trump card. What a strange brat. Not only is he a level 2 arcanist, but he also possesses such a strange flame. Moreover, this black flame is not an ordinary flame, yet this brat can use it so freely. We have underestimated this brat. Ing Xuelua whispered coldly. I wonder if little brother can block this fellow's black flame. It seems that this fellow's black flame is quite strange. Ing Hualan, who had a calm expression, frowned and opened her mouth to speak. Qianghua is not so easy to deal with. Let's wait and see. Ing Xuelua shook his head and spoke in a dark voice. Damn brat, I will definitely kill you. Ing Qianghua's eyes were bright red. Fingernails that were over a foot long extended from the fingertips of his hands. After which, both of his claws gently cut through the empty space. Immediately, the surrounding yuan power boiled. Immediately, countless yuan power chi blades were emitted from his fingernails. 10,000 claws gouging heart. A low roar was emitted from Ing Qianghua's throat. Immediately, countless tiny chi blades were agglomerated between his claws. These chi blades were merely the size of a fingernail. A trace of cold light burst out from Ing Qianghua's eyes. Immediately, Ing Qianghua pushed his claws forward. Then, the countless chi blades between his claws suddenly swept straight toward Zhuowen. The moment Ing Qianghua pushed out these tiny chi blades, they expanded countless times in an instant. They turned into huge chi blades that were as tall as a person. Countless huge chi blades turned into a constantly rotating hurricane above the arena. The hurricane was full of densely packed huge chi blades. The hurricane swept straight toward Zhuowen, intending to swallow him whole. Zhuowen snorted coldly. Instead of slowing down, he increased his speed and rushed into the hurricane in a way that seemed to be courting death in the eyes of everyone. Boom! However, what surprised everyone was that after Zhuowen rushed into the hurricane, a monstrous pillar of fire rose into the sky and tore the hurricane apart in an instant. Swoosh! In an instant, the hurricane was torn apart. A figure covered in black flames suddenly rushed out. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, the figure's right hand suddenly lifted Ing Qianghua's collar. Then, with a sudden swing, he threw Ing Qianghua onto the hard stone platform of the arena. Boom! Ing Qianghua was smashed into the ground by Zhuowen without any resistance. With a bang, a 2-meter deep crater was created. The funny thing was that Ing Qianghua's head was embedded in the ground. Only the lower half of his body was left on the stone platform. His legs were constantly swaying, like a living fish on a chopping board. From the moment Ing Qianghua released the chi blades to when he was instantly dealt with by Zhuowen, it was only a blink of an eye. When everyone reacted, they were shocked to find that Ing Qianghua, who was incomparably powerful a moment ago, was now embedded into the ground in a somewhat humiliating manner. Quite a number of people below the stage involuntarily laughed as they looked at the pair of repeatedly swaying legs on the stage. However, after laughing, the gazes that everyone used to look at the figure on the stage, whose entire body was burning with black flames, immediately became different. They finally understood why the youth was so arrogant at the beginning. It was because the youth had the capital to be arrogant. Ing Qianghua was actually dealt with so easily. Isn't this a little too fast? On the high platform, Gu Xian rubbed his eyes and looked at the swaying legs on the arena in disbelief. When he looked at the young figure standing quietly on the arena, he knew that what he saw was not an illusion. I didn't expect that he could deal with a warrior who was half a step into the Zhao King realm so easily. Gu Xian slowly calmed down and looked at the young man in the arena. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He still remembered the battle in the market half a year ago. At that time, he didn't put the youth in front of him in his eyes. At that time, he followed his father, Guyu Tian, to the Godstone Square and looked down on the youth in front of him. However, half a year later, the youth's strength had actually grown to such a terrifying extent. At this time, he could only look up at the youth that he didn't put in his eyes at that time. Lingju looked at the youth on the arena with surprise. He also didn't expect that the youth in front of him would be able to deal with Ying Qianghua so easily. Lingju glanced indifferently at the swaying legs not far away and said indifferently, "The city lord's mansion wins this round." As soon as Lingju said this, there was a burst of cheers on the high platform on Gu Yutian's side. Almost everyone stood up and jumped with excitement. Zhuowen's victory undoubtedly restored the face of Gu Xian when he was defeated. Gu Yutian suddenly stood up and said excitedly, "I really didn't misjudge Zhuowen. When I heard that he had killed Wang Yuanqing and Qin Sheng, I didn't believe it. Now it seems that it wasn't a lie." Beside him, Gu Yu also stood up. Her watery eyes stared straight at the figure of the youth on the stage that was the center of attention of tens of thousands of people. Crack! Ying Xuelua suddenly crushed the teacup in his hand, and his eyes suddenly popped out of their sockets. He stared at the arena in disbelief and muttered to himself, "He defeated Qianghua with only one move. Where did this kid come from? How could he hide such a powerful strength? Father, what should we do next? My strength is only slightly higher than Qianghua's. With the strength that the kid has shown, even if I use all my strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to defeat him." Ying Hualan's face was no longer calm. Her thigh-thick arms suddenly clenched into a fist, and her voice trembled. The Yin-sifting sect has been preparing for this competition for a long time. I will not allow any mistakes. Hualan, we can only use the yin-yang dual condensation technique. This time, you will be the carrier. Ying Xuelua said in a deep voice. Father. If we use the yin-yang dual condensation technique, I'm afraid brother will. Ying Hualan's expression changed and she hesitated. Humph. We can't let the City Lord's Mansion win this competition. Otherwise, the City Lord's Mansion will pull us further and further away. For the sake of the sect, Qianghua should be sacrificed. Why? Are you not willing? Ying Xuelua looked at Ying Hualan with red eyes and said eerily. Ying Hualan's expression turned cold. She finally lowered her head and said softly, "I will follow father's arrangement. The Yin-sifting sect admits defeat. Let Qianghua out." Glancing at Ying Hualan, Ying Xuelua suddenly stood up and stared coldly at Zhuowen in the arena. "Since you have admitted defeat, you will naturally be let go." On the arena, Zhuowen smiled faintly and immediately pulled Ying Qianghua out of the ground. "Zhuowen, you bastard, you hit my head on purpose, didn't you? I will not let you go." As soon as Ying Qianghua came out, he roared and pounced. "It seems that the lesson was not enough. Then I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your father." Zhuo Wenwei leaned to the side and dodged Ying Qianghua's pounce. Soon after, her right hand grabbed the back of Ying Qianghua's collar and pulled him in front of her. Then, her fist smashed down on Ying Qianghua's face. "Ah! My nose is bleeding." Ying Qianghua covered his nose and slowly retreated. His voice was even more miserable. His voice was like an old woman in her 70s being raped. It made one's hair stand on end. "Since I promised to beat you until your mother can't recognize you, then I will fulfill my promise." Zhuowen sneered and stepped forward. He punched and kicked Ying Qianghua's gigolo face. After a while, Ying Qianghua's originally white face was completely swollen at this time, like a pig's head. Ying Qianghua seemed to be numb and no longer struggled. Apparently, he had accepted his fate. "Enough!" Ying Xuelua suddenly shouted and clenched his fist, showing his anger at this time. However, he did not dare to make a move. After all, Gu Tian was on the opposite side. "Enough, I will return this guy to you." Zhuowen rubbed his fist and smiled brightly. Then, he kicked Ying Qianghua and sent him flying toward Ying Xuelua. At this time, many people in the audience were silent. Looking at Ying Qianghua, who was like a pig's head, everyone could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Chapter 171. Yin-yang double condensation technique whoosh. Ying Xuelua leaped and easily caught Ying Qianghua, who was flying backward. Looking at the bruised Ing Qianghua in his arms, the veins on Ing Xuelua's forehead bulged. He coldly glanced at the youth in the arena, snorted and returned to his seat on the high platform. At this moment the entire arena was in an uproar. Everyone stared at the young man on the arena. The contempt and mockery in their eyes had disappeared without a trace and was replaced with reverence. They also knew that the youth in front of them was probably the strongest of the younger generation in Rattan Armor City. To be able to defeat a half-step Radiant King so easily, it meant that the youth's true strength had reached a strange and unfathomable level. "Father, take revenge for me. You must kill that brat Zhuowen." On the high platform, Ing Qianghua, who was curled up in Ing Xuelua's arms, waved his hands weakly and said weakly. Ing Xuelua sighed. A trace of pity flashed across his face. He said, "Qianhua, I can't take part in the fight for the quota. Now, only your sister is left. However, you also know that your sister's strength is only slightly stronger than yours. If she were to go against Zhuowen, I'm afraid that her strength would be insufficient. So there's only one way now, and that's to use the yin-yang dual condensation technique." Speaking of this, Ing Xuelua suddenly became silent. He just quietly stared at Ing Qianghua in his arms, waiting for the former's reply. Yin-yang double condensation technique? Although I was already aware of it when I practiced this secret method with my sister, I didn't expect that I would have to use this trump card in the competition for the quota. So? Ing Qianghua paused for a moment. He looked past Ing Xuelua and stared at Ing Hualan behind him. He forced a smile and said, Sister, you must avenge me. Otherwise, my sacrifice will be in vain." Ing Hualan was taken aback. She looked at her brother in Ing Xuelua's arms with a complicated look in her eyes. Her heart was stirred. The yin-yang dual condensation technique was a very evil secret technique. This secret technique was divided into two parts, the yin condensation technique and the yang condensation technique. Both parts required two people to practice. There were almost no bottlenecks when cultivating this secret method, and the cultivation speed was also extremely fast. This was also why Ing Qianghua and Ing Hualan were able to reach the half-step King Zhao realm at such a young age. Actually, it wasn't because of their monstrous talents. It was because of the yin-yang dual condensation mantra that they were able to smoothly cultivate to the half-step King Zhao realm. However, any power came with a price. Since the yin-yang dual condensation technique could increase a cultivator's realm so quickly, the after-effects behind it were naturally not small. That was, while constantly increasing one's realm, one would have to endure a heart-gnawing pain every once in a while. In addition to the pain after a period of time, this secret method also imperceptibly changed the personality and behavior of the cultivator. Among them, Ing Qianghua was the best example. He cultivated the yin congealing secret art. Under the influence of the yin congealing secret art, Ing Qianghua's speech and behavior became more and more feminine. In Zhuowen's eyes, this was the behavior of a lady boy. Ing Hualan was naturally the same. Looking at her thick arms and legs, one could tell that under the influence of the yang condensation technique, she could no longer be called a woman. In addition to the above several side effects, there was the most important one, which the two people who cultivated the yin-yang dual condensation technique had to experience. That was, the two people who cultivated the yin-yang dual condensation technique could only reach the half-step King Zhao realm. It was impossible for them to reach the human king realm, or even the earth king realm or higher. If they wanted to break through, there was only one way, and that was, just kill me. Only by obtaining the yuan power of the yin condensation technique in my body and combining it with the yuan power of the yang condensation technique in your body, will you be able to fuse yin and yang and finally step into the human king realm. Ing Qianghua's gaze was very calm as he stared at Ing Hualan in front of him and said with a faint smile. "Little brother, don't worry. I will personally kill that arrogant brat Zhuowen for you." Ing Hualan lowered her head slightly. Soon after, she came to Ing Qianghua's side and squatted down. Her right hand formed a sword and pointed at the space between Ing Qianghua's eyebrows with lightning speed. Soon after, a ray of light suddenly burst out from between Ing Qianghua's eyebrows. This ray of light became even more vigorous and finally turned into a palm-sized white ball of light that quietly floated in Ing Hualan's palm. The moment this ball of light left Ing Qianghua's forehead, the former's body violently twitched. Soon after, his eyes widened and he stopped moving. The aura on his body gradually weakened and finally disappeared completely. Hualan. You don't have to be too sad. When you first practiced this secret method, you were already prepared for this day. This moment would have come sooner or later. So, don't let your brother's sacrifice be in vain. Looking at Ing Qianghua, who was no longer breathing in his arms, a trace of sadness flashed in the depths of Ing Xuelua's eyes. However, it was just a flash. He calmly said to Ing Hualan in front of him, "Father, I know what to do." Ing Hualan gently stroked Ing Qianghua's hair. At this moment, her gaze became gentle. However, when she looked at the white ball of light in her palm, a trace of coldness appeared in her eyes again. Taking a deep breath, Ing Hualan gently squeezed her right hand. The ball of light in her palm suddenly burst and turned into countless white light spots. The strange thing was that these densely packed light spots were like iron powder attracted by a magnet. They fought to be the first to enter Ing Hualan's body, and as these light spots continued to enter her body, the aura in her body also grew at an astonishing speed. Boom! When this aura reached its peak, a thunderous sound suddenly burst out from Ing Hualan's body and echoed throughout the high platform. Two different auras of power suddenly emerged from Ing Hualan's body like swimming dragons. One was as hot as a rainbow, and the other was as cold as ice. The two extreme energies merged together in the void behind Ing Hualan. Brilliant light like cherry blossoms suddenly burst out. Immediately, the void behind Ing Hualan gradually formed a red and white wheel of yin and yang. It was like the rising sun in the morning. The intense noise and dazzling light immediately attracted the attention of everyone on and off the stage. When these gazes focused over, they were first stunned for a moment. When they recovered from their daze, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Is this the yin-yang wheel? Is someone about to break through to the human king stage at this moment? Look! It's on the high platform of the yin-sifting sect. It seems that Ing Hualan of the yin-sifting sect has broken through. What a coincidence! She actually broke through at this moment. If she succeeds in breaking through, there will be another change in this battle for the quota. When everyone confirmed that the strange phenomenon just now came from the yin-sifting sect, their faces were filled with astonishment. When they saw that the person who broke through was Ing Hualan, who had yet to make a move, the entire arena was in an uproar. Originally, after Zhuowen easily defeated Ing Qianghua, everyone thought that the final winner of this battle would be the city lord's mansion. However, Ing Hualan's unexpected breakthrough cast a layer of suspense over the outcome of this battle. She actually broke through at this moment. On the arena, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at the huge red and white wheel in the void, as well as Ing Hualan, who was floating in the air with her eyes slightly closed. On the high platform, the smile on Guyu Tian's face completely froze at this moment. Looking at the red and white wheel in the void, the corners of his eyes suddenly twitched, and a trace of horror involuntarily appeared in his eyes. This power? It seems to be the yin-yang dual condensation technique. On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess also noticed the phenomenon on Ing Hualan's side, and a trace of doubt appeared in her beautiful eyes. Behind her, Su Chong saw that the 9th Commandery Princess was puzzled, so he waved his folding fan and said eagerly, "Commandery Princess, did you also recognize it? Those two brats from the yin-sifting sect cultivate the yin-yang dual condensation art. It's said that this secret art was bestowed to the yin-sifting sect's previous generation of disciples who made it into the top 1,000 in the Origin Chi Tower. So it was bestowed by our Marquis's mansion. No wonder it is so familiar. However, this secret technique has such a huge side effect, and yet there are still people practicing it. This is a little surprising." The 9th Commandery Princess nodded and said lightly, "The forces in a small place like Rattan Armor City are all inexperienced. Even though the yin-yang dual condensation technique is considered trash in the Marquis' mansion, it is like a treasure in the eyes of the yin-sifting sect. After all, our level is completely different from theirs. Su Chong gently waved his folding fan and glanced at the high platform where the yin-sifting sect was located. His eyes flashed with disdain and contempt. Even the servants of the Marquis mansion would not practice such a trashy secret technique like the yin-yang dual condensation technique. Now that he saw the yin-sifting sect taking it out like a treasure, he naturally felt disdain in his heart, and the arrogance in his heart became even stronger. From his point of view, Vine Armor City was merely a small and insignificant place. Even the Marquis of Baichuan's Marquis residence could be destroyed with a single order. With such a mindset, he felt even more disdain for the cultivators of Vine Armor City. However, this secret technique requires the sacrifice of a person. I'm afraid that the yuan power in Ing Qianghua's body has already been extracted just now. The leader of the yin-sifting sect is quite bold. I wonder how Zhuowen will deal with Ing Hualan after she advances to the human king stage. The 9th Commandery Princess's beautiful eyes moved slightly and looked at the young figure in the arena. A faint smile bloomed at the corner of her mouth. This was the smile of a child who had found a new way to play. Hearing the 9th Commandery Princess mention Zhuowen's name again, Su Chang's eyes flashed with a trace of darkness. He sneered and said, although that kid defeated Ing Qianghua, he is now facing a human king stage cultivator. I'm afraid he will lose miserably in a while. He may even lose his life. Chapter 172. A violent collision boom. In the void, when the alternating red and white wheel rose to its highest point, it suddenly exploded, turning into a long stream of red and white that floated down like a ribbon. In the end, it landed on the surface of Ing Hualan's body and turned into a strange armor with red and white light flowing continuously, firmly adhering to the surface of her body. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura abruptly erupted from Ing Hualan's body. This aura was like a mountain as it violently poured over. The air seemed to have frozen because of it. Looking at Ing Hualan, who was clad in red and white armor, Ing Xuelua's cheeks flushed and his eyes blazed. He knew that Ing Hualan had successfully reached the human king realm. You've successfully advanced? Is that the human king armor unique to human king realm warriors? I really didn't expect Ing Hualan to advance to the human king realm at this juncture. I'm afraid that even Zhuowen would find it difficult to defeat Ing Hualan, who is already in the human king realm. Yeah! The gap between the mortal king realm and the half-step radiant king realm is like a chasm. Although it's only one level of difference, the difference in strength is like heaven and earth. Numerous gazes gathered on Ing Hualan, who was wearing red and white armor. An uproar involuntarily sounded. Creak! Guyu Tian clenched his fists tightly and looked at Ing Hualan with bulging eyes. He had not expected Ing Hualan to succeed in breaking through. Human King Realm Expert. Even if Zhuowen has a powerful trump card, it will not be easy for him to defeat a human king, Gu Xian said with a sigh. Gu Yu's beautiful eyes were filled with worry as she stared at the figure on the stage. Zhuowen. Hand over your life. Today, I will avenge my brother and kill you in the arena. A rough voice spread throughout the entire arena like a bolt from the blue, and then a figure suddenly fell into the arena like a meteor. Boom! A loud sound accompanied by a wave of air suddenly poured out in all directions with the arena as the center. The powerful force caused many warriors below the stage to involuntarily take a dozen steps back. When the dust that permeated the sky gradually scattered, a 10-mile large deep pit was formed on the arena. A strong figure slowly walked out from within the deep pit. Finally, he stopped 10 meters away from Zhuowen. His sharp eyes stared intently at the former. Zhuowen could even see an extremely deep murderous intent in the depths of Ing Hualan's eyes. Kill me? Then you should be prepared to be killed. This is my last advice to you. A powerful chi wave surged over. Zhuowen's body stood firmly on the arena like a spear as he spoke with a calm expression. When the two of them stood facing each other on the stage, a wave of fanaticism was set off below the stage. Everyone stared at the two figures on the stage with fiery gazes. They knew that the following battle would definitely be a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. At this moment, Lingju's eyes were still extremely cold as he stood at the edge of the arena. However, the corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. As the captain of the guards of the house of Marquis Qin, he could naturally tell that Ying Hualan had used the yin-yang double condensation technique to forcefully raise her cultivation. However, he was somewhat disdainful of Ying Hualan, who had used such a secret technique. In his opinion, this method of forcefully raising one's cultivation by relying on a secret technique had too many drawbacks. It was easy to leave an indelible hidden danger in the body, which would affect the advancement of one's cultivation in the future. However, what was worth pondering over was Zhuowen's current expression. In his opinion, a warrior of the human king realm should be able to make the young man in front of him waver. However, what surprised him was that the young man's face was still terrifyingly calm. It was as if even if Ying Hualan's cultivation had reached the human king realm, he still did not take her seriously. No wonder the 9th Commandery Princess cares so much about this young man. I'm afraid this young man is not as simple as he seems to be. After thinking for a while, Lingju glanced at the two people who were facing each other in the arena. Immediately, he shouted in a low voice, "If the two of you are ready, the battle will begin now. Let me make this clear first. If any party wins this battle, that party will be able to obtain the remaining 2 spots." As soon as Lingju finished speaking, it immediately caused everyone below the stage to cheer. Amidst the cheers, Ying Hualan sneered. Her strong legs were like extremely elastic springs. She suddenly stomped on the ground. Her huge body was like a small mountain as she rushed towards Zhuowen. Bang! 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 As Ying Hualan rushed over, the air seemed to be torn apart. It was as if the air had turned into firecrackers, constantly exploding. Thump! Thump! Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He suddenly staggered and his body turned into an arc on the spot. Bang! Bang! The moment Zhuowen's body tilted, the space in front of him exploded. Ying Hualan's fist, which was as thick as a thigh, smashed towards him like a huge rock. Boom! The powerful force formed a ring-shaped ripple in the air. The ring-shaped ripple smashed into the ground through the fist, creating a basin-sized hole in the ground. Seeing that her attack had missed, a strange smile flashed across Ying Hualan's expressionless face. Zhuowen's heart shivered when he saw this. Soon after, he saw Ying Hualan's fist, which had missed, suddenly change direction in midair. Soon after, her fist turned into a claw in front of Zhuowen's eyes. Invisible yuan power transformed into a half-meter-long claw. Zhuowen, go and die. Ying Hualan's expression suddenly turned sinister. Swoosh! The sharp claw pierced through the air and suddenly shot towards Zhuowen's throat. A sharp cold light flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. The cold light of the sharp claw rapidly enlarged in Zhuowen's eyes. However, just as the sharp claw was about to pierce Zhuowen's throat, a blue light flashed. Soon after, the ice saint rune on Zhuowen's right hand flashed and an icy blue ice crystal condensed at his throat. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out the instant they made contact. Sparks flew and ripples visible to the naked eye spread out from the ice crystal at his throat. Ha ha! Interesting. When she saw that her unexpected sharp claw had been blocked, the corners of Ying Hualan's mouth curled slightly. Not only did she not reveal a disappointed expression, the sinister look on her face became even denser. She sneered, "My mysterious condensing claw is not so easy to block." When Ying Hualan's words left her mouth, the sharp claw that had landed on the ice crystal suddenly flashed with a gray light. When Zhuowen saw this, his pupils shrunk slightly. An uneasy feeling surged in his heart as his figure rapidly retreated. Pop! Just as Zhuowen's figure was about to explosively retreat, Ying Hualan's 2 fingers swiftly shot out like a spear, instantly piercing through the hard ice crystal. Following which, 2 grayish strength qis quickly caught up to Zhuowen like lightning, landing on his shoulders. Pop! The clothes on Zhuowen's shoulders were torn, and 2 bloody holes appeared. Traces of fresh blood immediately flowed out, dyeing the clothes on Zhuo Wen's chest red. Whoosh! The exchange in the arena was completed in a flash. Therefore, when the crowd saw that Zhuo Wen, who had just displayed his invincible might, had been injured, an uproar spread out. As expected of a human king stage practitioner. She actually injured Zhuo Wen with a single move. Looks like that brat doesn't have any chance of winning even when facing a human king stage practitioner. That's right. Looks like this brat can only stop here. However, this brat can also be considered amazing. Being able to defeat a half-step bright king stage practitioner already shows his strength. Now that he has lost to a human king stage practitioner, it's not considered shameful. In the seats of the city lord's mansion, the faces of Gu Yutian, Gu Yu, and Gu Xian instantly changed. They did not expect that Zhuo Wen would be injured in the first exchange. This was something that none of them had expected. Quite an interesting attack. Looks like a human king stage practitioner is indeed very strong. Looking at the two bloody holes on his shoulders, Zhuo Wen shrugged. There was no surprise on his face. Instead, a trace of a smile appeared on his face. As he smiled, the soul skill immortal essence in his body took effect. Under this effect, the bloody holes on his shoulders were slowly healing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Ying Hualan's eyes narrowed. Soon after, she sneered and said, "Your recovery ability is quite strong. However, I will beat you until you don't even have the chance to recover later." Zhuo Wen had a solemn expression on his face as he looked at Ying Hualan, who was sneering in front of him. Although he had once relied on the Ice Saint Talisman to kill Wang Yuanqing and the other initial human King Realm martial artists, he had never been able to do so. However, at that time, Wang Yuanqing had suffered extremely serious internal injuries in the battle with Zhuo Xiangding. His strength was even less than 10%. Therefore, Zhuo Wen was able to rely on the power of the holy ice symbol to kill Wang Yuanqing. However, Ying Hualan in front of him now was an initial human king stage practitioner without any injuries. Her strength was much stronger than Wang Yuanqing's when he was seriously injured. Zhuo Wen knew that if he wanted to defeat Ying Hualan, he would have to use the power of the holy ice flame symbol. You are indeed a human king stage practitioner. It seems that if I want to defeat you, the previous method won't work. Perhaps only that move can defeat you. Facing the powerful and terrifying Ying Hualan in front of him, Zhuo Wen did not show any signs of weakness. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his face as he spoke calmly. That move? Looking at the sudden smile on the young man's face, Ying Hualan suddenly felt uneasy. The source of this uneasiness was the young man in front of her, who was much weaker than her. Just as Ying Hualan was pondering over Zhuo Wen's words, Zhuo Wen had already taken out dozens of Yang Yuan stones from his storage bag. Soon after, he gently squeezed his left hand. A blazing pillar of fire immediately shot up into the sky from the Yang Yuan stones that he had crushed. At the same time, the young man gently waved his right hand. Immediately, a cold and oppressive void armor appeared on the surface of his body. Waves of icy blue cold air continuously condensed on his right hand from the void armor. This guy. What is he doing? Looking at the strange young man in front of her, Ying Hualan's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. However, when Zhuo Wen brought out the two extreme energies of ice and fire, the expressions of some of the forces below the stage suddenly changed. Soon after, a strange scene suddenly occurred below the stage. That was, about half of the forces below the stage actually tacitly retreated continuously. They only stopped when they had retreated 100 meters away and stopped to look at the stage. Some of the forces who did not know what was going on heard some of the people from the retreating forces discussing, "Damn it, is young Master Zhuo Wen going to use that move? The power of that move can raise the entire Wang family to the ground. We should quickly retreat." Chapter 173. Rock splitting and mountain moving formula. The abnormal behavior of the forces under the platform immediately attracted the attention of many people on the platform. Among them, the 9th Commandery Princess, who was sitting at the top of the platform, also noticed the abnormality under the platform. The 9th Princess looked at the strange behavior of many forces below the stage. She turned her beautiful eyes and looked at the figure on the stage. When she saw the figure, the ninth princess was stunned. A trace of surprise slowly appeared on her beautiful face. On the stage, the young man held a blazing hot fire pillar in one hand and an extremely cold chi in the other. Immediately, under everyone's gazes, his two hands quietly came together. The blazing hot fire pillar and the extremely cold chi also merged together. Sizzle! A soft sound slowly rose. Immediately, some five-colored sparks shot out from the young man's hands like scattered shooting stars. They drew a rather dazzling parabola on the quiet arena. This is, on the city lord's seat, Guyu Tian suddenly stood up. As he looked at the dazzling five-colored light that was being emitted from Zhuowen's hands, a tinge of horror surfaced in his eyes. He could feel that the two extremely ordinary ice and fire energies, under the young man's matchmaking, had actually become increasingly powerful at an extremely terrifying speed. City Governor, it is said that when the Zhuo family, the Wang family, and the Chen family were fighting, a five-colored energy pillar appeared. The power of the energy pillar was like a natural disaster, razing the Wang family mansion to the ground. At the same time, it killed Lu Qingshang, who was in the profound human king realm. According to the information obtained by the spies at that time, that huge energy pillar was created by young Master Zhuowen using the energy of ice and fire. Behind Guyu Tian, a subordinate quietly whispered into Guyu Tian's ear. Are you saying that what Zhuowen is using right now is very likely the same move that raised the Wang clan to the ground? Guyu Tian's hands trembled as his pupils abruptly constricted. I'm afraid so. That move should be young Master Zhuowen's final trump card. Therefore, City Lord still needs to pay attention to it. If it's too powerful, City Lord still needs to make more preparations. The person behind him replied respectfully. When they heard the conversation between Guyu Tian and Gu Xian and Guyu, who were standing beside them, had their mouths wide open. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The two of them shifted their gazes and looked at the young man in the arena again. They suddenly felt that this young man, who was younger than them, actually had so many trump cards. Not only did he eliminate the powerful and terrifying Ying Qianghua in one move, but he also showed powerful trump cards when facing a human king. Is he really a 16-year-old young man? Why is it that even some of the experts of the older generation can only admit defeat with the strength he has shown? Gu Xian's eyelids drooped slightly as he said with a bitter smile. At this moment, there was no longer any arrogance on his face. Instead, it was replaced by a bitter and self-deprecating expression. Now, he finally realized how big the gap between him and Zhuowen was. After repeated experiments and the fact that the ice and fire energy in his hand was only at the ordinary level, Zhuowen did not encounter too many obstacles in the process of fusing the ice and fire energy. It was almost a matter of time before the ice and fire energy was fused together. Boom! A five-colored light suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's hands. Immediately, the ice and fire created by the holy symbol of ice and fire was created. A strange gray ball with 5 colors circulating in it gradually appeared in the young man's palm. Looking at the gray ball in the young man's hand, Ying Hualan's pupils suddenly shrank. An ominous premonition emerged in her heart. She faintly felt that the power contained in the gray ball in the young man's hand was absolutely terrifying. What kind of move is this? Damn it, why is this brat so strange? He actually has so many tricks up his sleeves. However, I can't let this brat continue to attack. Otherwise, who knows what other trump cards he has? The ominous premonition in her heart grew even stronger. Ying Hualan knew that she could not just stand by and watch the show. She had to make the first move to gain the upper hand. Thinking of this, Ying Hualan's face suddenly became ferocious. She stomped her foot on the ground and a powerful force suddenly spread from her foot to the ground. Then, a violent vibration suddenly rose from the arena. Crack! Under the vibration of this force, the surface of the bluestone arena actually began to crack. Traces of cracks like a spider web slowly spread out on the surface of the arena. Rock splitting and mountain moving art. A low and deep roar was slowly emitted from Ing Hualan's throat. Soon after, her thigh-like arms were clenched into fists as they ferociously smashed towards the ground. Rumble. An even more powerful vibration suddenly spread out from the arena and below the arena. Soon after, the huge arena with a radius of 100 miles actually shattered under the vibration. Countless dust particles were like a fog that covered the entire arena. A huge black shadow suddenly rose from the ground amidst the dust. Its huge size actually covered the entire empty space in its shadow. When the dust gradually scattered, a large earthen yellow ball that was several thousand feet in size was quietly suspended in the air. Moreover, the thing that caused people to click their tongues in amazement was that this strange huge ball seemed to have a great attractive force. It was actually continuously absorbing countless rocks and soil from the ground to strengthen its own size. Under the attraction force of the round ball, the arena on the empty space actually disappeared into thin air. There was even a huge deep hole formed in the arena. Clearly, this was the effect of the round ball's attraction force. Rock splitting and mountain moving art. This should be the Een sifting sect's most powerful armor technique. I heard that when cultivated to the peak, it can suck out thousands of feet of mountains and merge them into a huge round ball. From there, it has the power to move mountains and split rocks. I wonder if Zhuowen can withstand Ing Hualan's attack. In the city lord's mansion seating area, Gu Tian suddenly stood up and said with a worried expression, "Zhuowen, you were able to force me to use the rock-splitting and mountain-moving art. Even if you die, you should be proud of yourself. With my current cultivation as a sovereign personage, I have already acknowledged your strength by using my ultimate technique. However, even if you have strength that far surpasses your cultivation, you will still die in the end because the final victor will be me." Ing Hualan's eyes narrowed slightly as she stared at the figure of the young man not far away. She leaped up and stood on the yellow ball. She looked down at the young man below and said coldly, "Is that so? Since you are so confident, then come and defeat me." Zhuowen said with a cold smile as he straightened his back and faced the huge round ball in the air without the slightest fear. "At this juncture, you are still so stubborn. In that case, I won't hold back. Under my rock-splitting and mountain-moving art, even a human king realm warrior won't be a match for me. Moreover, your strength hasn't reached the human king realm, so you can die now." Ing Hualan stood on the round ball with her arms crossed in front of her chest. The killing intent in her eyes suddenly burst forth. The two fingers of her right hand suddenly hooked, and the several hundred feet huge round ball under her feet shot towards the tiny figure below like a meteorite. Endless waves of air mixed with the sound of air exploding constantly rose in the open space. In the air, circular ripples caused by the huge round ball constantly spread in all directions. The powerful force even seemed to distort the space at this moment. Seeing the huge round ball in the air getting closer and closer, countless figures below the arena revealed a horrified expression. Immediately, they began to flee in the direction away from the arena in a panic. They could feel the smell of death coming from the huge round ball in the air. They knew that if they didn't take any measures, they would probably die here. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly as a solemn expression appeared on his face. He could feel the killing intent in Ing Hualan's move. The power of such a terrifying earth ball was absolutely unimaginable. "Let's try the power of this ice-fire explosion." Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly swung at the huge round ball in the air. The ice-fire explosion in his palm was suffused with a colorful brilliance. It was like a dazzling meteor that streaked across the air and suddenly rushed towards the huge round ball. The palm-sized ice fireball formed a sharp contrast with the gigantic sphere in the sky. Under the visual impact of the extremely large and extremely small spheres, the two strange spheres fiercely collided with each other in front of everyone's gazes. Rumble. The destructive energy suddenly spread out from the empty space. At this moment, waves of ripples appeared in the empty space. The invisible ripples were like sharp blades that suddenly swept past a hill not far away. With a loud sound like a muffled thunder, the hill suddenly collapsed and was razed to the ground. An enormous shockwave suddenly spread out in all directions. On the tall platform, countless factions unleashed their yuan power with all their might, forming an invisible barrier in front of them. With this, they blocked the energy shockwave that was transmitted over. Wherever the energy aftershock passed, the barrier formed on the high platform suddenly caved in, as if it was unable to bear the impact. Fortunately, under the efforts of everyone, the barrier was not broken by the energy aftershock. Looking at the barrier that blocked the energy aftershock, Gu Tian sighed softly. At the same time, his heart was filled with horror. He did not expect that just energy alone could reach such a level. The power created by these two people was too abnormal. So powerful. Gu Xian and Gu Yu were already stunned. This was the first time they had seen such destructive power. It was hard for them to imagine that this kind of power was created by two peers who were about the same age as them. Huh. Zhuowen, this move of yours is indeed powerful. However, I have already said that my rock-splitting mountain-moving art is not that easy to break. A wild and arrogant laughter was suddenly emitted from the empty ground. Immediately, everyone's gazes gathered over, only to see the dust slowly scattering. Although there were cracks on the surface of the huge round ball, it did not show any signs of collapsing. Ying Hualan stood on the round ball, laughing out loud in a wild and arrogant manner. Since one is not enough, how about two? How about three? A calm voice slowly rang out. Soon after, under the stage that had already turned into ruins, a young man stood quietly below, looking up at the sky. In his hands, there were two dazzling ice-fire explosions. At this moment, the dazzling colors were actually emitting a dazzling brilliance. Chapter 174. Ying Xuelua's killing intent. Although Ying Hualan was laughing maniacally on the surface, her heart was in turmoil. On the surface, it looked like her giant sphere was not damaged at all. However, she was very clear that in the violent collision just now, most of the giant sphere's power had already been destroyed. She knew that if Zhuowen's ice-fire ball had come at her again, her rock-splitting mountain-moving art would have been broken immediately. How is that possible? How can this fellow still use such a powerful technique? Moreover, he has created two of them in one go. At this moment, Ying Hualan's expression became abnormally ugly. She finally realized that she seemed to have underestimated the brat in front of her. Even though she had already advanced to the human king realm, the young man in front of her was still so calm, and the trump cards he displayed were getting more and more abnormal. On the high platform, Ying Xuelua also saw the two ice fireballs in Zhuowen's hands. The corner of his eyes twitched, and he could not help but gasp. He muttered to himself, this boy can still use such a powerful move. Can he, who is only at the half-step yang realm, use such a move without limit? On the other side, Gu Tian's face could not help but twitch. Previously, he had clearly felt the power of Zhuowen's ice fire. That kind of power caused even him to be somewhat fearful. However, now that he had created two of them at once, if they were to explode at the same time, who knew how terrifying the aftershock would be? Just as everyone fell into silence, a crazed look flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. This was the first time he had tried to condense two ice fireballs. Although he was still using common-grade ice and fire energy, the backlash during the process was still somewhat heavy. At this moment, Zhuowen's arms were stained with cherry-red blood and his face was as pale as snow. However, the corners of his mouth revealed a maniacal smile. Ying Hualan, take this properly. This is a feast that I have specially prepared for you. With a loud roar, Zhuowen threw both of his hands. Two five-colored ice fireballs intertwined in the air and formed two gorgeous arcs. They were like two meteors chasing each other. Finally, they formed a spiral arc in the air and violently swept towards the giant sphere. Buzz! Silence! Absolute silence filled everyone's ears. The only sound was the faint buzzing sound that constantly rang in their ears. It was like a mosquito constantly flapping its wings beside their ears. This was the temporary deafness caused by the loud noise. Only a loud noise that was as loud as the sky and earth could cause this phenomenon of countless buzzing sounds in one's ears. The blazing white light had already filled everyone's line of sight. It was so dazzling that everyone could not help but squint their eyes. Even if they tried their best to squint their eyes, all they could see was a vast expanse of whiteness. This sudden loss of 5 senses lasted for a while. Finally, the buzzing sound in everyone's ears came to an abrupt end. What replaced it was the clear sound of an intense explosion. The instant everyone's senses recovered, all of their gazes converged on the empty space above them. They could see that there was actually a huge, irregular white ball of light quietly suspended in the air. The white ball of light was like a constantly beating heart. It expanded in all directions without any pattern. Muffled sounds also rang out from this irregular ball of light. It was as if there were countless explosions occurring within the ball of light. Bang! 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 3 muffled thunder-like sounds suddenly rang out. Soon after, the white ball of light expanded at a terrifying speed. When it reached its peak, rumble. The white ball of light exploded with a loud bang, and the powerful explosion tore a black hole in the void. Even the surrounding space was distorted. Endless waves of air also suddenly rose. Soon after, they spread out in all directions. As the waves of air spread out, pieces of debris emitting sparks suddenly fell from the sky like rain. It was as if countless amounts of magma had sputtered out from a volcanic eruption. Everyone knew that these earth fragments that carried sparks were actually the countless fragments that were produced after the giant sphere formed by the rock-splitting and mountain-moving art had been completely disintegrated. As the pieces of sparks fell like rain, a black figure cut through the empty space and suddenly fell towards the empty space below that had already turned into ruins. Boom! The black figure suddenly smashed into the ground, smashing a deep hole in the ground. Through the misty dust, everyone could faintly see that the black figure was lying on his back in the deep hole. His body was constantly twitching. Dang dang dang. At this moment, the crisp sound of footsteps also rang out in the somewhat silent ruins, swoosh swoosh. The instant the footsteps rang out, countless gazes turned to the other side and saw a tall figure slowly walking over from the other side. When a delicate and handsome face slowly appeared in everyone's eyes, the entire empty space became extremely quiet, even a little deathly still. This was because the person standing in front of them was not Ing Hualon, whose cultivation had already reached the human king stage, but the delicate and handsome face of Zhuoan. Creak! On the city lord's seat, Gu Tian fiercely clenched his fists, causing crackling sounds to ring out. At this moment, his pupils had shrunk to the size of needles, and his lips could not help but tremble as he muttered, "Zhuoan, he won in the end, our city lord's mansion has obtained the final victory." At this moment, Gu Tian's heart was more emotional than anyone else. In the previous competition for the slots, their city lord mansion had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Yin-sifting sect. Therefore, a layer of stain had been smeared on their city lord mansion's reputation. It was also because of their defeat in the previous competition that the Yin-sifting sect's influence rapidly expanded. In a short period of time, they had caught up with the city lord mansion. Because of this, the Yin-sifting sect became even more arrogant and did not put the city lord mansion in their eyes at all. Gu Tian was very clear that if the city lord mansion did not obtain a slot this time, it was very likely that their influence would be overtaken by the Yin-sifting sect. With the Yin-sifting sect's ambition, it would be very difficult for them to obediently submit to the city lord mansion. Therefore, to Gu Tian, this battle was not just a competition for the slots. It was also a battle for the city lord mansion to regain their prestige and the city lord mansion's strength. If they won, then the city lord mansion would be able to consolidate their original position. If they lost, then the city lord mansion would very likely lose their prestige and Rotan Armor City might even fall into chaos because of this. After understanding the extraordinary significance of this battle, Gu Tian knew how great Zhuoan's contribution this time was. Impossible! How can our Yin-sifting sect lose? I don't believe it. It must be Zhuoan playing tricks in the dark. Yes, it must be him playing tricks. An explosive roar suddenly rang out in the silent open space. Immediately after, an extremely powerful aura, under everyone's astonished gazes, suddenly swept towards the figure standing in the middle of the ruins. Powerful Yuan power swept out like an endless torrential wave. At this moment, Ing Shualua's eyes were scarlet red. He mercilessly pressed his palms towards Zhuowen's head. The Yin sifting sect had suffered a great loss this time. 2 warriors who had reached the half-step King Zhao realm were defeated in the competition for the slots. Moreover, they were both defeated by the same person. For this competition, Ing Shualua could be said to be very well prepared. Not only did he bring his 2 half-step King Zhao realm sons and daughters, but he also decisively sacrificed his son's life to forcibly raise Ing Hualan's cultivation to the human king realm in order to win this competition. However, even though Ing Hualan's cultivation had reached the human king realm, she was still defeated in the end. And the person who defeated her was a young man who was not even 16 years old. Ing Shualua's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was above Zhuowen. Even Guyu Tian did not expect Ing Shualua to be so shameless as to kill Zhuowen. Ing Shualua, how dare you kill Zhuowen? If you kill him, your Yin sifting sect can only wait for the bloody revenge of the city lord mansion. Guyu Tian shouted. He stomped his foot and flew straight toward the open space. Unfortunately, he was too far away from Zhuowen. Ing Shualua had already arrived above Zhuowen's head. It was too late to stop him now. Ing Shualua's sudden attack was also unexpected. It immediately caused an uproar under the stage. Many people cursed Ing Shualua for being despicable and shameless. Ing Shualua no longer cared about anything else. His son and daughter, whom he valued the most, had died at Zhuowen's hands. The hatred for his son's death had completely filled his mind, causing him to lose all reason. On the open space, looking at Ing Shualua who was getting closer and closer, Zhuowen's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He did not expect Ing Shualua to attack at this time. This was simply against the rules of the competition. A strong pressure, like a mountain, suddenly pressed down on Zhuowen's body. Under this huge pressure, even Zhuowen could not help but breathe quickly. His whole body was extremely heavy, as if it was filled with lead. Boy, you killed my children and destroyed the foundation of my Yin sifting sect. Now, I'll kill you. Ing Shualua suddenly stepped on the air. His eyes were extremely red, like blood drops. At this time, his face was full of madness. Bang! Ing Shualua's right palm suddenly pressed down. A huge Yuanli palm was like a mountain, suddenly pressing down on Zhuowen's head. Feeling the Yuanli palm above his head getting closer and closer, Zhuowen smelled the smell of death. The Yuanli palm above his head was an all-out attack of a complete human king realm warrior. Even though Zhuowen had a lot of trump cards, he had consumed too much of his Yuanli in the battle with Ing Hualan. Coupled with the pressure of Ing Shualua's aura, Zhuowen could not resist at all. Am I going to die? Murmuring to himself, Zhuowen suddenly calmed down strangely. Looking at the Yuanli palm above him, Zhuowen's eyes were blurred at this moment, as if he had lost his mind. This boy is finished. Even if Zhuowen is incredible, it is unlikely that he can withstand the all-out attack of a complete human king realm warrior. Behind the 9th Commandery Princess, Su Chang gloated. However, the 9th Commandery Princess frowned. She did not expect this to happen in the end. Ing Shualua's unauthorized action made her very unhappy. I just found a fun toy, but it's going to disappear so soon. What a pity. The 9th Commandery Princess shook her head slightly as she combed her hair in front of her forehead. Chapter 175. Enter the state of metaphysics again. The ferocious look on Ing Shualuo's face intensified as he looked at the young man who seemed to be in a daze. He knew that the young man in front of him would definitely die under his all-out attack. Boom! Just as Ing Shualuo's attack was about to hit Zhuowen, a huge barrier suddenly appeared on the surface of Zhuowen's body. Ing Shualua was shocked to find that the pneuma around Zhuowen's body was boiling like boiling water. This is the law of heaven and earth? The smile on Ing Shualua's face froze. His pupils shrank to the size of needles as he stared at the young man with his eyes closed. Rumble. As Ing Shualua muttered to himself, the inexplicable barrier in front of Zhuowen suddenly exploded. Immediately, Ing Shuolua felt a mountain-like recoil from the barrier in front of him. This energy was extremely powerful, and it had already surpassed the limits of what a human king realm martial artist could withstand. Therefore, the moment Ing Shuolua felt the recoil from the barrier, he retreated vigilantly. However, to his horror, this force was like a maggot in his bones, firmly sticking to him. Ing Shuolua had no choice but to raise his palm to block the attack. Endless primordial force surged out of his body and eventually formed a golden spear. Ing Shuolua gripped the spear with his right hand and moved his 5 fingers. He exerted his strength, and the golden spear began to spin under the influence of his powerful fingertips. Then, like a poisonous dragon, it rushed toward the oncoming power of the law. Kacha! A soft sound rang out. Ing Shuolua was shocked to find that his golden spear, which had been formed by Yuanli, had crumbled like a piece of paper in the face of the power of the laws. The powerful force was like a whip as it lashed out at Ing Shuolua's chest. Puchi! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Ing Shuolua's mouth. Soon after, his sturdy body flew backwards like a withered leaf. As he flew backwards, blood continued to spurt out from his mouth. All this happened in a split second. Everyone was shaking their heads and sighing as they thought that Zhuowen was about to be killed by Ing Shuolua. Now, the scene of Ing Shuolua's flying figure silenced the crowd. Eh! The one who flew backward is Ing Shuolua. What just happened? Ing Shuolua was attacking Zhuowen with all his strength. Why is he flying backward and vomiting blood? When everyone's gazes gathered on the figure that was flying backwards and vomiting blood, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their gazes also became somewhat dull at this moment. Boom! Ing Shuolua fell from a ruin far away from the open space, stirring up a cloud of dust as he coughed. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground immediately woke everyone up. When they confirmed that the figure that was flying backward was indeed Ing Shuolua, the dullness in their eyes changed dramatically, turning into astonishment and disbelief. Guyue Tian, who was trying his best to rush over, also saw Ing Shuolua flying backwards. The worry and anxiety on his face froze at this moment, and his mouth was slightly agape. Ing Shuolua was obviously seriously injured. Could it be that the one who injured Ing Shuolua was Zhuowen, who was standing in the middle of the open space? Guyue Tian moved his stiff neck slightly and looked at the young figure in the ruins. When he saw that Zhuowen was still standing in the open space with his eyes closed as if he was asleep, he was stunned and the corners of his mouth twitched. Zhuowen didn't seem to have the ability to attack at all. Could it be that Ing Shuolua was bewitched? However, what happened next completely dispelled the doubts in Gu Yuetian's heart. Boom! A muffled sound suddenly rang out. Immediately, the yuan qi in the surroundings of the open space began to boil like boiling water. Following which, everyone was surprised to discover that the yuan qi in the surroundings seemed to have been sucked dry as it suddenly rushed towards a direction. That direction was where Zhuowen was standing. At this time, Zhuowen's body was covered with a layer of dazzling white light. This layer of white light was like a cocoon, attached to Zhuowen's body, and a strange energy was constantly dissipating. As the layer of white light continued to converge on Zhuowen's body, a ripple akin to the might of the heavens abruptly spread out in all directions with Zhuowen as the center. Under this fluctuation, many of the weaker martial warriors below the stage couldn't help but kneel on the ground, their foreheads covered in cold sweat. This wave is the power of the law of heaven and earth. This guy has entered the mysterious comprehending state. Lingjiu had already come to the 9th Commandery Princess's side when Zhuowen and Ing Hualan were fighting. At this time, he was staring at the young man below with his eyes slightly closed and turned pale with fright. The 9th Commandery Princess and Su Chong beside him were shocked when they heard Lingjiu's words. They both looked at the figure below. Naturally, they knew very well about the mysterious comprehending state. The mysterious comprehending state was a mysterious state. Once a warrior entered this state, he would be able to trigger the law of heaven and earth. Under the effect of the law of heaven and earth, the warrior's comprehension ability and the growth of his origin power would be thousands of times faster than usual. It could be said that the mysterious comprehending state was a privilege given to warriors by the law of heaven and earth. There were almost countless benefits in it, so as long as one was a warrior, he or she would want to enter this mysterious state. However, it was not that easy to enter the mysterious comprehending state. It was almost impossible to enter this state if one did not have the chance to enter it by chance or if one was extremely talented. According to the records of the Qing Xian Empire, as long as a warrior could enter the mysterious comprehending state, his or her future would be limitless if he or she did not die accidentally. This kind of warrior was the target of all the big forces. After all, it was not a loss to invest in a warrior who could be a peerless master in the future. This guy is really giving me more and more surprises. He can enter the mysterious comprehending state at this juncture. This guy's talent is probably extraordinary. The ninth commandery princess's beautiful eyes sparkled as she murmured. At this time, the arrogance on Su Chang's face gradually disappeared. After all, warriors who could enter the mysterious comprehending state were people that even the House of Marquis of Baichuan would try their best to recruit. Therefore, his attitude towards Zhuowen had changed from disdain at the beginning to a little bit of respect. I really did not expect that in such a small place like Rattan Armor City, there would be a warrior who could enter the mysterious comprehending state. Since this person could enter the mysterious comprehending state for the first time, there is a possibility that he could enter the mysterious comprehending state for the second time. Therefore, although Zhuowen's strength is still too weak, if he continues to develop, it is only a matter of time before he becomes a master. Lingjiu stroked his beard as the shock on his face faded away. He said with a complicated look in his eyes. Then this guy can't be let go of. With such talent, entering the House of Marquis Qin is the best choice for him. After all, the House of Marquis Qin is the most powerful force in the entire Muqin County. Otherwise, his talent would be wasted. The ninth commandery princess's beautiful eyes sparkled slightly as the corners of her mouth twitched, revealing a pair of cute little canine teeth. She smiled and said, "Princess, are you trying to recruit him into the House of Marquis Qin? But this guy just rejected your invitation a few days ago. I'm afraid that if you invite him again, he will not accept it." Su Chang's face suddenly darkened as he said with some jealousy. Every time he saw the ninth commandery princess showing interest in Zhuowen, he always felt a little uncomfortable. Hee. The reason why this guy rejected me last time was that he did not know how many resources the House of Marquis Qin had and how powerful it was. Most importantly, I did not offer him enough to tempt him. If the benefits were to a certain extent, even a clay figurine would be tempted. Moreover, Zhuowen is not a clay figurine. A trace of slyness flashed across the ninth commandery princess's eyes as she smiled sweetly. Looking at the ninth commandery princess who was smiling sweetly, Su Chang could not help but show a trace of infatuation. In the depth of his eyes, there was an inexplicable feeling constantly surging. Boom! Just as the ninth commandery princess and the others were talking, the pneuma in the open space had turned into streaks of white light and wrapped Zhuowen's whole body layer by layer. Finally, a giant cocoon was formed. The cocoon was milky white and streaks of strange energy were constantly emitting from it. Many warriors who wanted to get close to it had to retreat under the force of this energy. Guyu Tian looked at the giant cocoon floating in the open space with a complicated expression on his face. He vaguely guessed the state of Zhuowen at this time. Although it was a little hard to believe, he knew that his guess was probably right. The mysterious realm. I really did not expect that Zhuowen could enter such a mysterious realm. However, since Zhuowen is fine, then I can be at ease. But I won't letting Xuelua off so easily. Guyu Tian shifted his gaze to another part of the ruins. There was a deep pit, and in it, he could vaguely see a struggling figure. In Xuelua, you broke the rules of the competition for places for no reason, and you even intended to attack the contestants. You have committed a capital crime. Now, as the governor of Rattan Armor City, I declare that you deserve to die. As his words fell, Guyu Tian's gaze turned even colder. The instant his last word fell, Guyu Tian's feet fiercely stomped on the ground. His entire body was like a shooting star as he ferociously shot towards the deep pit. I really did not expect that Ing Shuelua, would be defeated by a junior. However, this old man has already remembered today's grudge in his heart. As long as I am alive, you will wait for my revenge. Chapter 176. Advancing to the corporeal yang stage, wherever the blood shadow passed, a bloody stench would be emitted, causing people to feel nauseous. Blood escape. I did not expect Ing Shuelua to use such a secret technique that harms others without benefiting himself, Gu Tian said with narrowed eyes as he stood in the deep pit, looking at the black spot that had disappeared into the distance. Blood escape was a technique that consumed one's essence blood to increase one's potential, allowing one's speed to reach an extreme level. However, this secret technique had a huge side effect on one's body. Therefore, very few warriors would use this secret technique unless it was a matter of life and death. Gu Tian also knew that he would not be able to catch up with Ing Shuelua, who had used blood escape. Therefore, he did not chase after him. Just as Gu Tian was deep in thought, a huge aura suddenly came from the empty ground and not far away. Turning his head, he immediately discovered that there were traces of cracks on the surface of the giant cocoon on the empty ground. They covered the surface like a spider web. At the same time, an aura was being emitted from the giant cocoon. Moreover, as the number of cracks increased, the aura became increasingly powerful. Crack! Finally, a sharp sound was suddenly emitted from the giant cocoon. Immediately, the giant white cocoon collapsed inch by inch, revealing the figure of a young man. Boom! The moment the giant cocoon shattered, the aura it emitted also reached its peak. At the same time, the fire symbol on Zhuowen's left hand flickered. The Nirvana demon flame contained in the symbol immediately whizzed out, transforming into a black skull that was dozens of feet in size around his body. Sizzle! Sizzle! The temperature instantly rose. The entire empty ground was like an oven at this moment. Transparent steam slowly floated up. Many warriors began to perspire under such high temperature. What a rich yang qi! It seems that Zhuowen is about to make a breakthrough. Gu Tian's eyes flickered as he said. Zhuowen's cultivation had already reached the level of half a step to corporeal yang stage. Now that he had entered the mysterious understanding stage, his comprehension and yuan power had reached an extremely terrifying level. His advancement to the corporeal yang stage was within Gu Tian's expectations. It seems that this brat is about to advance. Looking at his intention, he should be using the Nirvana demon flame to form a real armor. This brat is quite courageous. The Nirvana demon flame is quite powerful. However, it is not so easy to form a real armor. On the high platform, Ling Ju stood beside the 9th commandery princess. Her eyes were fixed on the young man below and she smiled faintly. Yes. This fellow is a little too arrogant. The Nirvana demon flame has a demonic nature within it. It is actually not suitable to be used to form a real armor. Later on, when this brat forms it, he will suffer. The 9th regional princess' pretty eyes rotated slightly as she coldly laughed. However, regardless of whether it was the 9th princess or Lingju, they did not know that Zhuowen possessed a treasure like the holy ice flame symbol on his body. Moreover, the Nirvana demon flame had already submitted to Zhuowen under the effect of the holy ice flame symbol. How could it turn against Zhuowen now? Just as everyone was having their own thoughts, the huge black flame skull on the empty ground suddenly roared. Immediately, it burst apart in front of everyone's shocked eyes. It split into countless small black flame skulls and scrambled to attach themselves to the surface of Zhuowen's body. Sizzle sizzle. In just a short while, the surface of Zhuowen's body was covered by countless black flames. These black flames continued to wiggle on his body. Very quickly, they formed a black armor. The black armor had an endless amount of black flames burning on it. The chest of the armor was actually a ferocious skull. On the shoulder armor, there were even black-colored bone spikes. Moreover, there were many similar black bone spikes on this black armor. The shoulder armor, elbows, spine, and knees all had these strange black bone spikes. Moreover, the surface of the bone spikes was constantly burning with black flames. Zhuowen's mask was actually the front of a skull. It looked ferocious and mighty. It could be said that Zhuowen, who was wearing this armor, was simply a killing machine. The bone spikes all over his body were all his weapons. The moment this ferocious armor was formed, a hot aura suddenly emitted from Zhuowen's body. This aura had completely surpassed the half-step to corporeal yang stage. Obviously, Zhuowen had successfully advanced to the corporeal yang stage. On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess looked at Zhuowen, who had instantly formed the armor. Her pretty face could not help but be stunned. Immediately, a flush involuntarily appeared on her cheeks. She actually revealed an embarrassed and angry expression. This fellow is purposely looking for trouble. The 9th Commandery Princess waved her fist as she curled her lips and said hatefully. Just a moment ago, she had solemnly said that Zhuowen would suffer a lot when he used the Nirvana Demon Flame to form the armor. However, who knew that Zhuowen had successfully formed the armor just as her voice sounded? This caused her to feel a little embarrassed. Lingju, who was beside her, also laughed dryly. After all, he was the one who had brought up the topic earlier. However, the gaze he used to look at Zhuowen had finally changed. It seemed that the little fellow in front of him had always exceeded his expectations. The moment the armor was formed, Zhuowen's cultivation level had reached the first-level corporeal yang stage. However, at this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were still tightly shut. There were no signs of him opening them. It has already been 15 minutes. Why is this fellow not showing any signs of waking up? Isn't it said that when a martial artist enters the Xian opening stage for the first time, he can only last for 15 minutes before he is forcefully withdrawn from the Xian opening stage? Looking at Zhuowen, who still did not open his eyes, the 9th Commandery Princess held her chin with her jade-like hand and said with some surprise. Lingju's gaze also became serious. He looked at the young man below, who still had his eyes closed. An unbelievable thought suddenly surfaced in his mind. What the Commandery Princess said is somewhat reasonable. When a martial artist enters the Xian opening stage for the first time, he will be forcefully withdrawn within 15 minutes. Those who can last for more than 15 minutes in the Xian opening stage basically have entered the Xian opening stage a few times. Lingju trembled slightly as he spoke a somewhat absurd fact. Puff! The 9th Commandery Princess, who was about to drink tea, suddenly spat out the tea in her mouth when she heard Lingju's words. She did not care about the loss of composure on her face. She looked at Lingju in shock and said, "You are saying that this is not the first time Zhuowen has entered the Xian opening stage? That is to say, before this, he has already entered this Xian opening stage? I remember that this fellow is only 16 years old. He is about the same age as me." Lingju nodded slightly. This time, his gaze was finally filled with shock. If it was as he guessed in his heart, the young man in front of him was indeed somewhat terrifying. I have also read some ancient books about the Xian opening stage. It was clearly mentioned that when a martial artist enters the Xian opening stage for the first time, no matter how heaven-defying his talent is, he will not be able to stay in the Xian opening stage for more than 15 minutes. If a martial artist can stay in the Xian opening stage for more than 15 minutes, it is basically not his first time entering the Xian opening stage. How is it possible? Big Brother and Second Brother's talent is already monstrous. Until now, they have only entered the Xian opening stage once. However, this fellow has already entered the Xian opening stage several times. Does this mean that this fellow is even more monstrous than them? The 9th Commandery Princess murmured to herself as she covered her cherry lips with her jade-like hand. Lingju, who was beside her, lowered his head slightly and remained silent. Apparently, he had acquiesced to the 9th Commandery Princess's words. On the open ground, as time went by, the pneuma in the surrounding area was almost completely sucked out by Zhuowen. This enormous pneuma, without exception, flowed into Zhuowen's body. With the influx of the enormous pneuma, coupled with the stimulation of the law of heaven and earth, Zhuowen's qi was growing at an astonishing speed. Bang! 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 3 soft sounds were heard. Immediately, the qi in Zhuowen's body shot up to an astonishing level like a rocket. His qi also rose from level 1 of the corporeal yang realm to level 4 of the corporeal yang realm. Level 4 of the corporeal yang realm. Looking at Zhuowen, whose strength had suddenly soared, Gu Tian's face could not help but twitch. Since when was it so easy to break through to the corporeal yang stage? In the blink of an eye, he had already broken through 4 stages. And from the looks of it, it seemed that he was not going to give up. Zhuo Wen's monstrous speed of advancement caused an uproar among the people below the stage. They didn't even know what had happened. All they saw was that the youth on the open ground had soared from the half-step corporeal yang realm to the 4th layer corporeal yang realm in the blink of an eye. After breaking through to level 4 of the corporeal yang realm, the growth of Zhuo Wen's qi slowed down. After a while, he reached level 5 of the corporeal yang realm. When he reached level 5 of the corporeal yang realm, Zhuo Wen's qi finally calmed down and finally stabilized. When Zhuo Wen's qi calmed down, he slowly opened his tightly shut eyes. At the same time, the laws of heaven and earth around him receded like the tide. As the laws of heaven and earth receded, the mountain-like pressure on the open ground also disappeared. Some of the weaker cultivators, who were forced to their knees by the pressure, let out a sigh of relief. However, when these cultivators looked at the young figure on the open ground, their gazes were filled with fear and respect. They knew that the powerful pressure was caused by the young man before them. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, a trace of confusion appeared in his eyes. He looked around and realized that countless gazes were gathered on him. The confusion on his face became even more intense. What's going on? Where the hell did old Dogging go? With a doubtful expression, Zhuowen asked probingly. Chapter 177. Refusal. Thanks to Gu Tian's explanation, Zhuowen also understood what had happened when he had inadvertently entered the mystic comprehending state. Zhuowen, you have to be careful of Ying Shui Luo. He will do anything to achieve his goal. If you don't get rid of him today, he will be a disaster in the future. In Rotten Armor City, Ying Shui Luo won't act recklessly. I'm just afraid that when you leave Rotten Armor City, that old man will find you alone. After explaining, Gu Tian reminded him. Zhuowen nodded and smiled. Thank you for your advice, City Lord. I will be careful. However, when Zhuowen lowered his head, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Ying Shui Luo had disregarded the rules of the battle for the quota and attacked him. Zhuowen naturally could not let this go. If there was a chance, it would be Zhuowen who would look for that old man. Looking at Zhuowen's flickering eyes, Gu Tian knew that Zhuowen did not take his warning to heart. However, with the talent that Zhuowen had shown, he was not too worried. After all, when he was at the half-step corporeal yang realm, Zhuowen was able to kill an initial human king realm warrior. Now, Zhuowen's strength had skyrocketed to the 5th level of the corporeal yang realm. Even if he was not a match for Ying Shui Luo, it would not be difficult for him to protect himself. Thinking of this, the worry on Gu Yuetian's face faded away. He tilted his head and looked in the direction of the 9th Commandery Princess. He cupped his hands respectfully and said, 9th Commandery Princess, since you are the host of this competition, the final decision will be left to you. On the stage, the 9th Commandery Princess smiled and said, the result is self-evident. The city governor's office has won. Therefore, the remaining places belong to the city governor's office. Hearing the 9th Commandery Princess's words, many people in the governor's mansion cheered. Gu Xian and Gu Yu looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. Gu Tian also let out a sigh of relief, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. The city lord's mansion had finally redeemed its reputation in this competition, and all the credit was naturally due to the young man beside him. While countless people were cheering in the city lord's mansion's seating area, on another high platform, Hu Zhao's gaze turned solemn. He was silent for a while, before he softly sighed and said, I never imagined that such a genius would appear in the city lord's mansion. With this kid's talent, I'm afraid that he will shine in the Origin Qi Tower battle in 2 years. Hu Wuying, who was beside him, had a determined expression in his eyes. He said, "Master, this disciple will work even harder. I will not bring shame to the Tiger Ben Gate. No." Since this child, Zhuo Wen, was able to enter the profound comprehension realm, it means that this child's natural talent is already comparable to the geniuses of those super cities. Master's purpose in saying these words is not for you to compare with him. Instead, I want you to understand that you must build a good relationship with him in the Origin Qi Tower battle in 2 years. Speaking up to this point, Wu Xiao suddenly paused for a moment before slowly opening his mouth. Master has a premonition that this child might be able to enter the top 100 in the Yuan Qi Tower battle. Following this child is definitely a wise choice. When Hu Wuying heard these words, a look of horror immediately surfaced on his face. He naturally knew very well what the top 100 in the Origin Qi Tower battle meant. One must know that there were tens of thousands of factions in Muqin Prefecture, so the number of contestants participating in the Origin Qi Tower battle would definitely exceed tens of thousands. Among so many contestants, if one could enter the top 1,000, he or she would be able to receive resources from the House of Marquis Qin. And if one could stand out from so many geniuses and enter the top 100, he or she would be considered a genius among geniuses. And these top 100 geniuses would have the qualifications to participate in the Battle of the 9 Counties. In other words, they would have the qualifications to compete with the countless top geniuses of the Qing Xian Empire. At the same time, these top 100 geniuses would naturally receive resources unconditionally provided by the House of Marquis Qin. Spiritual treasures, secret techniques, armor techniques, elixirs, and other precious things like these would be provided unconditionally by the House of Marquis Qin. The ultimate goal was naturally for these top 100 geniuses to obtain good results in the Battle of the 9 Counties. Hu Wuying's eyes abruptly narrowed as he stared at the figure standing on the ground below. He didn't expect that his master would have such a high evaluation of Zhuo Wen, to the point where he actually compared the former to the peak geniuses of the Azure Mystic Empire. But when he thought of the young man's heaven-defying performance, his throbbing heart slowly calmed down. Looking at the cheering crowd below, the 9th Commandery Princess's beautiful eyes flashed a trace of craftiness. She giggled and said, "But I haven't finished speaking yet." As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd quieted down again. Everyone's eyes were focused on the girl with a crafty expression on her face. Zhuowen frowned as he looked at the crafty face of the 9th Commandery Princess. A sense of foreboding arose in his heart. Zhuowen knew a little about the character of the 9th Commandery Princess. Although the 9th Commandery Princess looked like a 15 or 16-year-old girl, under her innocent appearance, there was a deep scheming heart. She was like a poisonous snake hiding in the dark. If one was not careful, one would suffer a great loss. The 9th Commandery Princess looked at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. She smiled brightly and said, "Hee hee. Zhuowen, your talent and performance has greatly exceeded this princess's expectations, so this princess admires you very much. Now, in front of everyone, I formally invite you to join the House of Marquis Qin." Before Zhuowen could answer, the 9th Commandery Princess said again, "Perhaps you still don't know my conditions. Let me tell you frankly. If you agree, I promise you can directly become a seed disciple of the Marquis Mansion. This is the highest treatment among all the disciples who join the House of Marquis Qin. You should know that every year, there are tens of thousands of people who want to join the House of Marquis Qin. But there are only 9 who can become a seed disciple. The so-called seed disciple is the last disciple of my father, Marquis Qin. In terms of martial arts, you can get personal guidance from my father. In addition, the seed disciple can get a group of elite cavalrymen to protect him. All the resources in the Marquis Mansion, as long as you have permission, you can get them at any time. With your talent, under the cultivation of the House of Marquis Qin, you can reach the Heavenly King realm in just 2 years. Even among the contestants of the Tower of Vitality battle, this kind of strength is a peak existence. Therefore, joining our Muqin Marquis residence will bring you unimaginable benefits in the Tower of Vitality battle 2 years later. Speaking of this, the 9th Commandery Princess lowered her eyelids and suddenly became silent. She just quietly looked at the young man below. After the 9th Commandery Princess finished speaking, there was an uproar on the stage and off the stage. The originally quiet open space became noisy at this time. As the strongest man in Muqin County, Marquis Qin's strength had reached the mysterious fourth venerable realm. In the whole Muqin County, there was no one who could match him. Naturally, there were countless people who wanted to become the disciple of such an overlord. However, to become the disciple of such an overlord was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Only those with heaven-defying talent were qualified to become the last disciple of such an overlord. As the saying goes, 3 years of hard work is not as good as a teacher's guidance. With the guidance of such a strong man at any time, there was no doubt that one could avoid many detours on the road of martial arts. Even if one did not mention the little benefit of Muqin Marquis' guidance, the Muqin Marquis manor was the #1 faction in Muqin County. Its rich foundation had already exceeded everyone's imagination. Therefore, just this foundation alone was able to allow the training speed of many warriors to increase by many times. No one had expected that the 9th Commandery Princess would propose such a tempting offer to the young man standing quietly in front of them. Although Zhuowen's performance just now was indeed very dazzling, it seemed that it was not enough to be promoted to a seed disciple of the house of Marquis Qin. However, many of the sensible people had already faintly guessed that the reason why the 9th Commandery Princess was so enthusiastic to invite Zhuowen to be a seed disciple was probably related to the inexplicable mysterious realm that Zhuowen had just entered. At this time, Guyu Tian, who was standing beside Zhuowen, was dumbfounded. Even he did not expect that the 9th Commandery Princess would propose such a tempting offer. Even he had no reason to refuse such an offer. Unfortunately, he did not have the terrifying talent of Zhuowen. Guyu Tian licked his dry lips and said to Zhuowen in a trembling voice, "Zhuowen, this is a rare opportunity. You have to seize it well. As long as you agree to join the house of Marquis Qin, you will soar to the sky." Slightly lowering his head, Zhuowen's heart was also not calm. Although he did not know much about the house of Marquis Qin, he could not refuse the 9th Commandery Princess's offer. However, just when Zhuowen's heart was burning with passion, Xiao Hei's voice came at the right time. "Young man, you have the secret of the holy charm of ice and fire. If you become the disciple of Marquis Qin, I am afraid that not only will you lose the secret of the holy charm, but also my existence will be discovered. If that is the case, I am afraid that you will be in a very bad situation." Zhuowen's heart shivered when he heard these words. The fiery heat in his eyes slowly disappeared. He took a deep breath and replied, "You are right. It is not wise for me to expose the secret on my body. If Muqin Marquis discovers it, I will be in danger if he harbors even the slightest bit of greed. So, Zhuowen, what will your choice be? You should know that my patience is not that good." The 9th Commandery Princess squinted her beautiful eyes and quietly stared at the young man below the stage. Whoosh! 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 At the same time, everyone's eyes were fixed on Zhuowen. They all knew that the young man's answer would most likely change his life. In this somewhat strange atmosphere, the young man slowly raised his head. There was not the slightest bit of nervousness or any other emotion on his face. Instead, there was a calm and serene expression. The young man's lips moved slightly, and his clear and melodious voice resounded throughout the entire open space. "I refuse." Chapter 178. Zijin Men, he actually rejected it? Is Zhuowen out of his mind? How could he reject such a generous offer? I really don't know what he's thinking. If it were me, I would definitely agree. This is a chance to soar to the sky. After a long period of silence, an uproar broke out in the open space. Everyone's gazes were focused on the youth. Their gazes were filled with confusion, doubt, ridicule and various other emotions. Guyu Tian, who was beside him, was also stunned. He tilted his head slightly and looked at the young man beside him in disbelief. With an excited expression, he said, "Zhuowen, this is an opportunity for you and your Zhuo family to soar into the sky. Why are you rejecting it? You can't let your emotions affect your decisions." At this moment, Zhuowen was extremely calm. He calmly gazed at Gu Tian and said, "City Lord, I am very calm right now. I also know what I am doing. However, this is my business. I hope you won't interfere. Furthermore, I naturally have my own considerations for refusing." Gu Tian was stunned. What Zhuowen said made sense. After all, it was someone else's business. As an outsider, it was inappropriate for him to say anything. Sighing slightly, Gu Tian said helplessly, "Now the 9th Commandery Princess is inviting you in front of everyone. Obviously, she has made up her mind to recruit you. But if you refuse now, I'm afraid she won't let it go easily. I will deal with the 9th Commandery Princess," Zhuowen said softly. Since he had already said so much, Gu Tian naturally had nothing else to say. However, the frown between his brows represented that his heart was not calm at all. On the high platform, no matter if it was the 9th Commandery Princess, Ling Ju, or Su Chang, they were all stunned after receiving Zhuowen's rejection. In their opinion, no fool would reject the 9th Commandery Princess's offer. However, to their disbelief, the young man in front of them actually refused in such a righteous manner. The 9th Commandery Princess squinted her beautiful eyes, and the smile on her face slowly froze. Instead, she became a little gloomy and said coldly, "Zhuowen, you are really bold. How dare you refuse me twice? I will give you one last chance." Before the 9th Commandery Princess could finish her words, Zhuowen suddenly stepped forward and looked at the girl on the high platform. He said loudly, "Say no more. My answer will not change. I will not join the house of Marquis Qin." After being interrupted by Zhuowen's words, the 9th Commandery Princess's mistress of Marquis. "How dare you? How dare you disobey the Commandery Princess's order?" Lingju saw that the situation was not right. She stood up abruptly and stared at the young man below the platform. At the same time, an aura as vast as the ocean suddenly burst out from her body. As soon as the aura gushed out, it was like a mountain, pressing down on Zhuowen. Bang! The powerful pressure suddenly pressed down on Zhuowen's body as if a mountain had suddenly appeared on his back. Soon after, Zhuowen's entire body sank. Under this pressure, his feet actually created two extremely deep depressions in the ground. Zhuowen's whole body was also under the pressure. Slowly, he bent his body, and beads of cold sweat flowed down from his forehead. Lingju was indeed a heavenly king expert. Just the pressure of her aura was enough to make Zhuowen unable to bear it. "Kneel down and admit your mistake." Lingju's eyes were wide open in anger. An even stronger aura poured down on the young man in front of him. This time, he had used 70% of his strength. He was confident that even a warrior in the profound human king realm would be forced to kneel down under the pressure of his aura, let alone Zhuowen. However, what shocked him was that the young man in front of him did not kneel down as he wished. Instead, his entire body struggled. His originally stooped back actually slowly straightened as he struggled. Moreover, his face revealed a trace of a stubborn smile. At this moment, Zhuowen's condition was not very good. Under the pressure of Lingju's aura, his internal organs were slightly damaged, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. However, even though he was seriously injured and spat out blood, the young man in front of him still had a stubborn smile on his face. Everyone fell into a strange silence as they stared at the smile on the young man's face. Everyone's gazes were complicated as they stared at the young man who was struggling bitterly on the empty ground. They were truly unable to imagine how the young man in front of them could still smile at this stage. Gu Tian's expression changed drastically. He took a step forward and clasped his hands together. "Ninth Commandery Princess, Zhuowen did not mean to offend you. I hope the Commandery Princess can." However, before Gu Tian could finish his words, Lingju's right hand gently waved, and a powerful force instantly swept over. Gu Tian was caught off guard, and under the effect of this force, he was forced to continuously retreat. He only managed to come to a stop after creating two pits that were more than 10 meters long on the ground, and immediately spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. "Lord Gu, you'd better not interfere in this matter. Otherwise, it will not be worth it to lose your life. Lingju glanced at Gu Tian indifferently and said coldly. With his face slightly red, Gu Tian spat out another mouthful of blood. However, he fell into a rare silence. The strength of Lingju in front of him was too strong. He had no doubt that with Lingju's strength, she could kill him with just one move. The smile on the 9th Commandery Princess's face was long gone. Instead, it was replaced by deep indifference. She quietly looked at the struggling young man under the stage and said again, "I'm really surprised. There should be no reason for you to reject my offer. However, you rejected it. This is unbelievable." Speaking of this, the 9th Commandery Princess suddenly smiled and said, "I'm curious as to why you rejected my offer. Can you tell me more about it?" At this moment, Zhuowen's origin energy was mobilized. Even the solid armor, which had just been condensed, automatically appeared on the surface of his body due to the great pressure. However, even so, Zhuowen still had a hard time resisting the attack. Now, even if he wanted to raise his head, he had to exert all his strength. Moreover, he was sweating profusely. Slightly raising his head, Zhuowen's eyes were still emotionless and calm. Suddenly, he grinned and said, "Reason? Do I need a reason to reject? Isn't it everyone's right to reject? Or do you want to deprive me of the right to reject as a member of the noble family? Isn't this too overbearing?" The empty ground once again descended into silence after Zhuowen's words were spoken. A contemplative expression surfaced in everyone's eyes when they heard Zhuowen's words. The 9th Commandery Princess was also stunned. She had thought that the young man in front of her would choose to give in at this moment of life and death. However, what really shocked her was that the young man did not give in. Instead, he gave a righteous answer. Gazing at the stubborn young man under the stage, the 9th Commandery Princess's heart was suddenly touched. It was as if a door in her heart was gradually opening at this moment. As a descendant of the noble family, the 9th Commandery Princess had lived a luxurious life since she was a child. The people around her were all respectful and obedient to her. No one dared to reject any of her requests. Now, the ordinary-looking young man in front of her had rejected her several times. This was the first time she had experienced such a feeling. Although she was a little angry, it was more of a novelty. Zhuowen stared at the 9th Commandery Princess who was on the stage. His feet seemed to be stuck in a swamp. He suddenly took a step forward and his eyes were full of fearlessness. He shouted loudly, "Everyone has their own freedom. Everyone has their own choice. It's my freedom to reject or accept. Why do I have to accept the result that I don't want to accept under your coercion? This is like a bird in a cage. If a bird that can spread its wings and fly high is imprisoned in a cage, it will suffer more than death." Zhuowen stepped forward step by step. His voice was loud and clear, and his expression was stern. An unconcealable chi power was emitted from his body, which slightly offset the pressure exerted by Lingju. In this way, Zhuowen stood proudly in the open space with his back straight. This brat! Lingju also felt that his own pressure was greatly reduced by the aura emitted from Zhuowen's body. This caused his pupils to shrink as he muttered to himself. The 9th Commandery Princess suddenly became silent. After a while, she raised her head and stared at Zhuowen again. She said, "Since you refuse to join the house of Marquis Qin, then I won't force you. However, I want to make a bet with you. If you win, then you can do whatever you want. But if you lose, then you have to join the house of Marquis Qin. This is the last chance I'm giving you." The 9th Commandery Princess did not wait for Zhuowen's response. She waved her hand, and a brilliant purple gold light shot out from her palm. Then, it turned into a huge purple gold gate in the air, which was as big as a mountain. Boom! The huge purple gold door suddenly fell towards the empty ground below. Endless sounds of air exploding also rang out because of this. Finally, it violently smashed onto the ground. Countless wild waves of air violently swept up. Finally, the purple gold door proudly stood in front of everyone amidst the dust that filled the air. An ancient aura that resembled the primordial desolation slowly seeped out from the purple gold door. This is the advanced spiritual treasure, the purple gold door. There are 9 doors inside, which are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, black, and purple gold. Now you enter. If you can break through the 9 doors, then I won't force you. But if you can't, then you have to join the house of Marquis Qin. This is my bottom line. The 9th Commandery Princess looked down at Zhuowen and said indifferently. Chapter 179. Enter the purple gold door that stood proudly was as majestic as a mountain. Compared to it, the countless figures below were as tiny as ants. Zhuowen raised his head and looked at the purple golden door. He did not expect that the 9th Commandery Princess could take out such a rare treasure. Furthermore, from the indistinct pressure that was emitted from the purple gold door in front of him, one could tell that this spiritual treasure was not ordinary. Zhuowen. The purple gold gate was filled with spiritual barriers. Some places even had terrifying spiritual storms. Those who entered would die if they were not careful. Moreover, each of the 9 gates was stronger than the last. Even a human king realm warrior would not be able to break through all 9 gates. So it's not too late for you to regret. The 9th Commandery Princess said coldly as she stared at the young man below. Zhuowen raised his head slightly and glanced at the 9th Commandery Princess. He remained calm and said, I choose to go in. Humph. This is your choice. If you die in there, don't blame me. Seeing Zhuowen's fearless attitude, the 9th Commandery Princess's face darkened. She snorted coldly and formed a complicated seal with both of her hands. She gently pushed her jade-like hand and a light seal shot out from her palm. Whoosh! The light seal accurately shot into a groove on the main gate of the purple gold door. Boom! Following the fitting of the groove, the entire purple gold door began to vibrate violently. The purple gold door slowly split open from the middle. Immediately, an extremely powerful mental energy ripple spread out from the purple gold door, shaking some of the nearby practitioners until they were forced to retreat in a miserable manner. What a powerful spiritual pressure! When the mental energy undulations surged out, Zhuowen was also astonished to feel a special pressure spreading from the purple gold door. Under this pressure, his body seemed to have become a little heavier. Fortunately, Zhuowen's mental energy had reached the 2nd level. Hence, he was able to remain calm under this pressure. Zhuowen raised his head and glanced at the 9th Commandery Princess again. Then he stepped into the purple gold door without any hesitation. In the eyes of others, Zhuowen's impatience made it seem as if he was in a hurry to die. This caused many people to look at him strangely. Everyone could feel how terrifying the pressure emitted by the purple gold door was. Moreover, it was already so terrifying just by standing outside the door. If it was inside the door, wouldn't it be even more terrifying? At this moment, Gu Yu and Gu Xian had already arrived beside Gu Yu Tian. The two of them carefully helped Gu Yu Tian up. Gu Xian worriedly asked, Father, are you alright? Don't worry. It's just some superficial wounds. It's just that Zhuowen. Gu Yu Tian shook his head and looked at the purple gold door in front of him with mixed feelings. When the 9th Commandery Princess said that the purple gold door was a high-level spiritual treasure, Gu Yu Tian knew that it would be extremely difficult to break through the purple gold door. However, Zhuowen insisted on breaking through as if nothing had happened. This made Gu Yu Tian puzzled. Hearing Gu Yu Tian's words, Gu Xian and Gu Yu fell silent. Originally, it was a good thing that Zhuowen had helped the governor's mansion to win the quota battle. However, they did not expect things to turn out like this. This guy seems to be impatient to enter the purple gold door. Could it be that I'm imagining things? Looking at Zhuowen, who did not hesitate to enter the purple gold door, the 9th Commandery Princess's beautiful eyes were full of doubts. Commandery Princess. If Zhuowen can't break through the purple gold door, he will be crushed to death by the spiritual barrier inside. I don't think this is what you want. Lingju, who was standing beside her, looked at the purple gold door with mixed feelings and whispered to the ninth commandery princess. "Don't worry. I won't let this guy die. Third brother gave me the natal light seal of the purple gold door. With this seal, the purple gold door will naturally be under my control. At that time, if he can't break through the purple gold door, I will let him out. At that time, it will not be up to him whether he wants to join the house of Marquis Qin or not." The ninth commandery princess's black eyes were rolling as she said with a smile. "You are so wise. After all, the purple gold door is third master's spiritual treasure. Although Zhuowen has many trump cards and has the strength to kill a warrior of the initial human king realm, the purple gold door is not that easy to break through. Even if I go in, I am afraid that I will be in a mess." Lingju said respectfully. "Lingju, you don't have to be modest. With my strength, I am unable to trap you. If it was third brother, with his strength, he would be able to use the violet golden door to trap you. However, if it was me, I would not be able to do it. But to trap Zhuowen, I think I have the strength to do so." The ninth commandery princess said with a smile. "Huh. Thank you for your praise, commandery princess. But how long do you think Zhuowen will last in the purple gold door?" Lingju asked with a hollow laugh. Resting her chin on her hand, the ninth commandery princess played with her hair and said lazily, "A warrior of the initial human king realm should be able to reach the sixth door. But if it were that guy, he might be able to break through the seventh door. As for the eighth door, the black door, and the purple gold door, I am afraid that guy will not be able to break through them." Inside the purple gold door, there was a strange space. It was like a starry sky, with countless light spots twinkling constantly. In the dark night sky, there were even streaks of meteors with tails. Under the starry sky, on a dark grassland, a figure stood quietly. It was Zhuowen who had just entered the purple gold door. At this time, Zhuowen was not as calm as before. Instead, he looked flustered and exasperated. He pointed at Xiao He, who was floating in front of him, and shouted angrily, "Xiao He! In order to keep your secret, I refused to join the house of Marquis Qin. I even followed your order and entered the purple gold door. Now you are telling me that you have no way to get out." Xiao He laughed dryly. It scratched its head awkwardly with its paws and said, "Boy, don't worry. This Lord Dragon can sense that this purple gold door is hiding something that can restore this Lord Dragon's soul origin. As long as you find that thing, this Lord Dragon will be able to recover. At that time, this so-called purple gold door will be broken by this Lord Dragon." Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the little black dog who was laughing dryly in front of him. He finally realized how unreliable the little black dog in front of him was. In fact, when Zhuowen saw the ninth commandery princess take out the purple gold door, he had already wanted to give up. The purple gold door was an advanced spiritual treasure. Even if he had reached the human king realm, it was unlikely that he could resist an advanced spiritual treasure. Although he had never seen an advanced spiritual treasure, he had seen Zhuo Xiangding use the gravity tower with his own eyes. With the gravity tower, Zhuo Xiangding could even fight against two human king realm warriors, one of whom was at the profound human king realm. This already showed the power of a medium spiritual treasure. If a medium spiritual treasure was so powerful, it was needless to say that an advanced spiritual treasure would be even more powerful. However, when the purple gold door appeared, Xiao He, who had been silent in Zhuowen's body, became excited as if it had taken an aphrodisiac. It even roared in Zhuowen's ear, asking him to enter the purple gold door. According to Blackie, he sensed that there seemed to be something inside the purple gold door that could repair the soul. As for what it was exactly, he kept it a secret. Zhuowen naturally didn't ask too much. Moreover, this fellow had vowed that the purple gold door couldn't stop him at all. As long as he went in, he would be able to come out. Therefore, under Xiao He's instigation, Zhuowen acted as if he had boarded a pirate ship and entered the purple gold door stupidly. Moreover, he acted so impatiently as if he was in a hurry to be reincarnated. Zhuowen glared at Xiao He fiercely. He sighed and said, "Alas! I really admire you. Can you sense where the thing you are talking about is? Hee hee. This dragon lord can feel that the thing is not ordinary, but it is definitely not on this floor. Didn't the little girl just say that there are 9 doors in the purple gold door? Therefore, the thing should be in the other doors. Xiao Hei closed its eyes and tried to sense for a while. Then, it smiled bitterly. It seems that we still have to go in. However, according to the 9th Commandery Princess, the 9 doors in this purple gold door are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, black, and purple gold. Moreover, each door is stronger than the last. I am afraid that these doors will not be easy to break. Zhuowen said after pondering for a while. You are right. Judging from the scene here, this should be the entrance to the purple gold door. The first door should be the red door. We need to find the red door first. Xiao Hei's eyes narrowed as she nodded. Zhuowen nodded and did not dawdle. He brought Xiao Hei with him and turned into a shadow, disappearing from the spot. In this space, apart from the starry sky above, there was only a vast grassland on the ground. It stretched as far as the eye could see. Zhuowen naturally did not want to waste time here. He had to find the red door and break it to enter the next space. Swoosh! Across the grassland, a mountain range appeared in the distance. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen was close to the mountain range. Young man, the red door is behind the cliff on the left. Xiao Hei's soul strength was much stronger than Zhuowen's. In an instant, she found the red door among the numerous mountains. Without hesitation, Zhuowen stepped forward and arrived behind the cliff that Xiao Hei had pointed out. Indeed, there was a red door behind it. The red door was about the height of a person. It was located in a groove on the cliff. If one did not look carefully, it would be difficult to find the red door. Break it. As soon as Xiao Hei finished speaking, Zhuowen released his yuan power and condensed a golden fist. He violently punched the red door. However, what surprised him was that this ordinary punch of his shattered the red door like a hot knife through butter, revealing the red whirlpool behind it. The red door is so fragile. Zhuowen muttered. Hee hee, the power of this thing increases with each level. I am afraid that it will become very terrifying at the end. You better be careful. Xiao Hei's cold laughter suddenly rang out. Chapter 180. Broken outside the violet gold gate, the 9th Commandery Princess and the others stared at the huge gate in the open space. At this moment, the purple gold door's color had already begun to change. It turned into a blood-red color, appearing rather dazzling in the open space. Did they find the red door so quickly? On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess looked at the red door and murmured to herself. The red door is the weakest door. Even a warrior of the Yin Void realm can easily break it. This is nothing. Su Chang, who had been silent all this time, interrupted. The 9th Commandery Princess glanced at Su Chang and ignored him again, which made him feel awkward. The moment he entered the red door, Zhuowen felt the pressure around him become heavier, as if there were a few extra pieces of lead on his body. Is this the world behind the red door? Moreover, the mental pressure has also increased by a lot. Looking at the red scene around him, Zhuowen was somewhat speechless. Other than red, there were no other colors. It was as if he was wearing red glasses in this world. However, under this mental pressure, the mental strength in my Naiwen palace seems to have been tempered a little. Zhuowen smiled faintly. Mental energy poured out from his Naiwen palace and enveloped his body. The mental energy pressure on his body was greatly reduced. This place is indeed a good place to train your mental strength, but you don't have that much time now. Hurry up and find the second door. Xiao Hei said lazily on his shoulder. Nodding his head, Zhuowen began to seriously search the red space. Very quickly, he found the orange door and successfully entered it. Time passed by gradually. About 30 minutes later, Zhuowen had passed through the first 6 doors. Just as the 9th Commandery Princess had said, each door was stronger than the last. At the beginning, Zhuowen could easily break the red door with a casual punch. However, when he came to the indigo door of the sixth door, this door was thousands of times stronger than the red door. Even though Zhuowen had used all his strength, he still managed to break it with the power of the holy symbol of ice fire. As soon as Zhuowen stepped through the indigo door, a powerful pressure surged towards him like a tide. Zhuowen couldn't help but bend his knees. After adapting to the pressure for a while, Zhuowen slowly straightened his body. The mental pressure here has reached such a terrifying level. It seems that it is not wise to resist it directly. Muttering to himself, Zhuowen's body abruptly erupted with countless blood veins. Shortly after, these blood veins expanded the muscles all over his body. A vigorous feeling of power continuously surged out from within his body. Second Sky of Rampage. After activating the violent blood beast body, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the mental pressure on his body had dissipated. After moving his arms and legs slightly, Zhuowen tilted his head and said to Xiao He, who was on his shoulder, "Xiao He, is the thing on this floor?" At this moment, Xiao He held its chin with its right hand and pretended to be thinking. Then, it shook its head slightly and said, "It is not here, but it should be here soon. I can feel that it is not far from here." With a wry smile, Zhuowen gazed at the purple door in front of him and said helplessly, "The sturdiness of this purple door should be even more terrifying than the indigo door. It seems that ordinary attacks will not be able to hurt it. I can only use the ice fire." At this point, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed, and a cold expression suddenly burst forth from his eyes. Soon after, the ice and fire symbols on the back of his hands suddenly flickered. Taking out a Yang Yuan stone from his Qianquan bag, Zhuowen crushed it and refined a fire pillar. Then, he released the 10,000-year mysterious ice-cold qi from the void armor. Next, Zhuowen skillfully mixed the two types of ice and fire energy together. Accompanied by a sizzling sound, the ice fire, which had a terrifying aura, lay quietly in Zhuowen's palm. "Kid! With this level of ice fire, I am afraid that one is not enough. You will need at least two." Xiao He stretched out its paw and reminded him appropriately. "Humph. Of course I know." With a cold snort, Zhuowen did the same as before and mixed another ice fire. Soon after, he let out a soft shout and threw the ice fire in front of him. The two ice fire were like meteors, revolving around each other in a spiral, and finally collided with the purple door. Boom! A monstrous loud sound suddenly rose. Immediately, a monstrous wave of air swept out in all directions. With a clear and crisp sound, Zhuowen's face lit up. Soon after, he saw that the huge purple door was collapsing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye, and finally, the purple vortex behind the door was revealed. The moment the purple door was blasted open by Zhuowen's brute force, the open space outside started to shake violently. Many warriors could not stand still, and some even fell down awkwardly. In the open space, the originally indigo door had now turned purple. As expected, he has broken through the seventh door. However, this is the end. This guy will never be able to break through the eighth black door. On the high platform, the ninth commandery princess's expression froze, and then she sneered. "I heard that the third master had also broken through the purple gold door. I wonder if he had broken through the ninth door." Su Chong glanced at the strange state of the purple gold door, and then looked at the ninth commandery princess, trying to find a topic to talk about. Third brother has indeed broken through the purple gold door. With his talent and strength, he should have broken through the ninth door. It was because he had passed the test of the ninth door that father gave him this extremely powerful spiritual treasure, the purple gold door, the ninth commandery princess replied calmly. "I see. No wonder he is the third master. No matter if it is his talent or strength, he is so powerful. Even this purple gold door has been broken through. However, compared to Zhuowen, he pales in comparison. The purple gold door is his limit." Su Chong waved his folding fan and smiled elegantly. The ninth commandery princess glanced at Su Chong with disgust. Although Su Chong was the second son of Marquis Baichuan, he was arrogant and bullied people. He had a bad reputation in the commandery capital, and was a typical foppish playboy. If it were not for Marquis Baichuan's arrangement, the 9th commandery princess would not want to bring such an annoying guy with her. She felt annoyed just by looking at him. Zhuowen is not weak. He is able to break through the purple gold door at such a young age. His talent is extremely strong. Otherwise, why would I invite him to be a seed disciple of the house of Marquis Qin? If you say so, aren't you implying that I have poor taste? The 9th commandery princess said sarcastically. Hearing this, Su Chang's face froze. Then, he smiled embarrassedly and stopped talking. Looking at the silent Su Chang, the 9th commandery princess sneered. Then, she picked up the teacup and took a sip. The purple gold door seems to have turned black. Just when the 9th commandery princess picked up the teacup and took a few sips, a scream came from below the stage. This voice startled her. Her hands trembled slightly, and the teacup fell to the ground. Bang! The clear sound of the teacup breaking was heard. However, the 9th commandery princess did not pay attention to the broken teacup. Instead, she turned her beautiful eyes and looked at the purple gold door on the open ground. She watched as the deep purple color on the purple gold door slowly faded away. Then, a deep black color climbed up the surface of the door. Her pupils suddenly shrank to the size of needles. She was completely dumbfounded. Black. Black door? This guy actually entered the 8th black door? The 9th commandery princess stared and said in a daze. Su Chang, who had been silent, also turned his head to look at the purple gold door. When he saw that the purple gold door had indeed turned black, his face was full of surprise. It seems that Zhuowen is not a simple boy. He was able to pass through the black door of the purple gold door at such a young age. This shows that his talent is not inferior to that of the descendants of nobles. Your Highness, it is not a bad decision to choose him to enter the house of Marquis Qin. Lingju also saw that the door had turned black and said in surprise. It seems that I have underestimated this guy's potential. However, the stronger his talent is, the wiser my decision is. If this guy is cultivated well, I am afraid that in the battle for the Vitality Tower in 2 years, he will be one of the main forces of the house of Marquis Qin. Slightly calming down, the 9th commandery princess smiled and said, moreover, this guy is still so young. It shows how much potential he has. However, this is the end of him. My third brother only passed through the last door of the purple gold door when he was 19 years old. Although this guy's talent is not bad, compared with my third brother, there is still a certain gap. Now, it is time to send him out. That's right. The Marquis will be very happy to find such a genius for the Marquis mansion. After all, the Marquis is thirsty for talents. Lingju echoed with a smile at this time. Both of them had a deep understanding of the purple gold door. The 7 doors of the purple gold door were not very difficult. However, when it came to the black door, the difficulty level was so high that even the combination of the first 7 doors could not be compared to it. The 9th door of the purple gold door was even more terrifying. Even the combination of the first 8 doors could not be compared to the 9th door of the purple gold door. In their opinion, Zhuowen should have been exhausted when she broke through the black door. After all, no matter how heaven-defying Zhuowen was, it was impossible for her to break through the last door. This was because the sturdiness of the purple gold door was something that even a heavenly king stage cultivator would find difficult to break through. As she spoke, the 9th commandery princess made a few seals and condensed a purple gold light seal in her palm. Boom! At this time, a loud sound like countless thunderbolts suddenly came. Immediately, the huge purple gold door standing proudly in the open space shook a few times. Then, in the horrified eyes of the crowd, the towering purple gold door shook a few times and a crack appeared on the surface of the door. Then, inch by inch, the door broke open. Chapter 181. 1000 Transformations. Stone Tablet. Darkness. Endless darkness filled the entire space. It was so dark that one could not even see one's 5 fingers. Under the erosion of the darkness, the entire space appeared to be decayed and barren. This space was the world of the Black Door. Other than darkness, there was nothing else in this world. If one were to talk about the only source of light, it would be the mountain-like purple gold door that lay at the front of the darkness. The purple gold door emitted a glaring purple gold color. This gorgeous color was just like a guiding light in the dark night within the entire dark space. A figure was slowly walking in a certain corner of the darkness. His footsteps were a little messy. His delicate and handsome face had an endless amount of perspiration that continuously flowed down from his forehead. Rough panting sounds also sounded. This figure was Zhuowen. After entering the purple door, he quickly found the black door under the guidance of Xiao He. The sturdiness of the black door had greatly exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. Even though he used all of his skills, he was unable to shake the black door even a little. Therefore, with no other choice, Zhuowen finally used the Nirvana Demon Flame and the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye to create the Earth Great Ice Flame. This time around, Zhuowen had created the Earth Great Ice Flame for the second time after killing Lu Qingshan. Its strength was indeed extremely shocking. However, the price it had to pay was extremely terrible. With Zhuowen's current physical fitness, he naturally suffered a backlash from the Ice Flame Holy Symbol. However, it was fortunate that Zhuowen's current strength was much greater than before. Moreover, he had also grasped some of the tricks of the Ice Flame Holy Symbol. Therefore, he did not collapse to the ground like he did the last time after using the Earth Great Ice Flame. The black door was naturally blasted open under the bombardment of the Earth Great Ice Flame. The space within the black door was much smaller than the previous 7 doors. Moreover, other than darkness, there was only the enormous purple gold door at the end of the darkness. However, the mental energy pressure within the door had become extremely frightening. Zhuowen, who was inside the black door, felt like a mountain was crushing his body with every step he took. If he had not used layers of defense, he might have been crushed into meat paste by the spiritual pressure. Xiao He, is the thing in here? Zhuowen panted heavily. His eyes were red as he looked at Xiao He on his shoulder. It's not there. It seems that the item should be within the 9th purple gold door. However, it is obvious that items that can restore one's soul are extremely precious. If I were the owner of this purple gold door, I would definitely place it in the innermost door. Xiao He's eyes turned slightly serious as she said. Hearing this, Zhuowen smiled bitterly. The spiritual pressure within the black door had already suppressed him to the point of suffocation, let alone the even more mysterious purple gold door. Moreover, with his current strength, wanting to break through the violet gold door was undoubtedly a fool's dream. Xiao He, I'm going to die because of you. Being able to break through the black door and enter the 8th door is already my limit. As for the final purple gold door, even I am powerless to do so. Zhuowen grimaced in pain as he spoke. He. The 9th door is indeed too much for you, so leave the rest to me. Xiao He waved her little paw and gently patted Zhuowen's shoulder as she said with a smile. You mean? Zhuowen was stunned when he heard these words and subconsciously asked. You have helped me so much, so I will naturally not be ungrateful. Therefore, I will help you break through the final purple gold door. After Xiao He finished speaking, she leaped and turned into a black fog in midair, enveloping Zhuowen's entire body. After the black fog completely enveloped Zhuowen, Zhuowen lost control of his body. His consciousness was like a bystander, silently observing everything around him in his sea of consciousness. The black fog gradually dissipated, revealing a figure. It was still a handsome young man, but at this moment, the corners of the young man's mouth revealed a faintly discernible evil smile, giving one a feeling that it was full of evil. Moreover, the young man's eyes were no longer pitch black. Instead, they were somewhat scarlet, looking rather ferocious and strange. Kid! Take a good look at how this dragon lord will break that broken door. The corners of the young man's mouth curled into a smile. Soon after, his legs suddenly shot out, and his entire body was like an arrow that had been released from a bow, flying at a steady speed towards the purple gold door in the depths of the darkness. In his sea of consciousness, a trace of astonishment surfaced on Zhuowen's face as he looked at his own body, which did not stop at all. He did not expect Xiao Hei's spiritual energy to be completely unaffected by the mental energy pressure within the black door. This was the second time Zhuowen had borrowed Xiao Hei's strength. However, from Xiao Hei's words, it seemed that borrowing its spiritual energy would cause quite a bit of damage to its own spiritual origin. Therefore, it would not lend its strength to Zhuowen unless it was in a life and death situation or was driven by a huge benefit. Even the previous time, it was because the ice-fire holy symbol had a certain supporting effect on Xiao Hei. Therefore, Xiao Hei made an exception and borrowed Zhuowen's body to unleash a strength that was almost comparable to a four-reverend stage practitioner. Of course, this strength was only temporary. Swoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen had already rapidly approached the purple gold door, and the smile on his face had already reached its peak. Kid! This Dragon Lord will show you the third level of the immemorial Dragon Roar Fist. Watch carefully. Wild and arrogant laughter erupted from Zhuowen's mouth. Soon after, his 5 fingers were tightly clenched into a fist. A powerful aura that was like a monstrous wave suddenly surged out from within his body. In his sea of consciousness, Zhuowen's eyes immediately narrowed when he heard this. He stared closely at Xiao Hei, who was controlling his body. The immemorial Dragon Roar Fist was a mysterious armor technique that his father, Zhuo Xiaotian, had left behind. It was said that it was an incomplete armor technique, but its power still reached the level of a heaven-rank middle-level armor technique. From this, one could see how extraordinary this armor technique was. Ever since Zhuowen had broken through to the second level of the 10 dragons ascend to the heavens under Xiao Hei's guidance in the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye, he had not made any progress after that. At this moment, since Xiao Hei was able to display the third level of the immemorial Dragon Roar Fist, Zhuowen was naturally looking forward to it. After all, being able to personally witness the third level of the immemorial Dragon Roar Fist would be of great help to his comprehension. Immemorial Dragon Roar Fist, 100 dragons battle the heavens. A hoarse roar slowly emerged from Zhuowen's mouth. Zhuowen's right fist fiercely pointed at the empty space. Soon after, heart-wrenching dragon roars burst out, resounding through the clouds, one after another. As the dragon roars whizzed past, countless ear-piercing explosions sounded out the instant Zhuowen's right fist violently smashed into the empty space. Soon after, 100 black giant dragons broke through the space behind him. They opened their mouths and rushed in the direction of his fist. Rumble! 100 giant dragons intertwined with each other, as if they covered the sky and covered the sun. It was as if the entire sky was covered by giant dark clouds. Soon after, the 100 dragons violently smashed into the purple gold door that stood in the empty space. The violent explosion was accompanied by endless air waves that violently swept out in the world of the black door. Invisible ripples were like water waves that spread out in all directions. As the aftershocks continued to spread, the entire black space began to violently shake as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Under such tremors, the mental energy barrier that covered the black door actually began to collapse. The surrounding dense darkness also began to shatter at this moment. Crack! A clear sound slowly rang out. Soon after, the giant purple gold door that stood in the empty space actually collapsed inch by inch with a cracking sound. Zhuowen also suddenly rushed into the door. Is this the world inside the purple gold door? When Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes and looked around, a trace of astonishment appeared in his eyes. What appeared in front of him was a rather large open space. In the middle of the open space, there was actually a stone tablet that was about 10 feet tall that silently stood. The entire open space was empty except for this strange stone tablet. After muttering to himself for a while, Zhuowen slowly walked towards the stone tablet. At this moment, Zhuowen's consciousness had already returned to his body. After Xiao Hei used the immemorial Dragon Roar Fist, he once again transformed into Xiao Hei the dog and stood on Zhuowen's shoulder with a lazy expression. What made Zhuowen feel strange was that in the world inside the purple gold door, there did not seem to be the slightest bit of mental energy pressure. Even if Zhuowen did not use any defensive measures, he could still walk around with ease. After walking into the stone tablet, Zhuowen could see that the surface of the stone tablet was inscribed with some unknown symbols. He did not recognize these symbols. Myriad stone tablet. I never thought that there would actually be a myriad stone tablet inside the purple gold door. No wonder this dragon lord could feel that special fluctuation from outside. It turns out that it was emitted by the myriad stone tablet. Just when Zhuowen was feeling rather puzzled, Xiao He the dog on his shoulder said in amazement. Myriad stone tablet? What is that? Zhuowen asked with a puzzled gaze. Xiao He the dog extended its little paw and rubbed its chin, replying, the myriad stone tablet is what it was called 10,000 years ago. However, this thing seems to have been lost in the turmoil 10,000 years ago. I'm afraid that there are only a few warriors in this era who can recognize the true identity of this tablet. To put it bluntly, the so-called myriad stone tablet is actually a spatial spiritual treasure. Spatial spiritual treasure? Isn't that similar to a Qianquan bag? Zhuowen asked in astonishment. A Qianquan bag cannot be compared to the myriad transformation steel. The space within the myriad transformation steel is almost limitless, and the number of things it can store is almost innumerable. 10,000 years ago, this kind of large-scale spatial spiritual treasure was the favorite of those sections. After all, those sects with deep foundations had countless treasures, and only a spatial spiritual treasure like the myriad transformation steel could store them all. Chapter 182. Secret psychic techniques. Far to the northeast of Rattan Armor City, there was a huge ship with a dragon's head. It was as big as a mountain. Thousands of miles above the clouds, it was speeding towards Rattan Armor City. If one looked closely, this ship was exactly the same as the dragon that the 9th Commandery Princess had taken last time. A handsome man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes in a purple robe sat cross-legged on the dragon's head. Terrifying energy ripples emanated from the man's body. These ripples were much more terrifying than Guyu Tian's, but they were slightly weaker than Lingju's. Clearly, the purple-robed man's cultivation was at least at the Earth King realm. The purple-robed man was about the same age as Gu Xian, around 20 years old at most. However, he was at least at the Earth King realm at such a young age. Obviously, he was a talented person. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to reach such a terrifying realm at such a young age. The violet gold door was actually broken. The purple-robed man frowned slightly. His gaze shifted slightly as he looked in the direction of Vine Armor City and muttered to himself. Brother Yuanhua, you are so elegant. You're actually in the mood to sit on the dragon's head and meditate. A rough voice suddenly came from the deck behind the dragon's head. The purple-robed man turned his head and looked behind him. He saw a tall man with bare arms standing on the edge of the deck. He had a resolute expression on his face and a huge long-handled broadsword on his back. He was looking straight at the purple-robed man with an arrogant smile on his face. The aura emanating from this tall man was not any weaker than the purple-robed man. Clearly, he was an expert of the same level as the purple-robed man. These two men were around 20 years old, but their cultivations could not even be compared to some of the older generation warriors. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, their talent could be said to be extremely terrifying. This kind of talent was probably at the top even in the entire Muqin County. Brother Sumu, may I know why you are looking for me? The corners of the purple-robed man's mouth curled up as he asked in a neutral manner. Hee. This time, the matter regarding the ancient cave mansion could be said to have shaken the entire county. It was likely that many of the more troublesome forces would gather in Rattan Armor City. If we want to obtain good things, I'm afraid it's more appropriate for us to work together. The rough man crossed his arms and laughed. Joining forces is naturally a must. This time, Lord Father originally planned to join forces with the 3 marquises of the county to enter the ancient cave together. As for the forces from the county capital, they are not worth mentioning. This time, we should be facing some traps and mechanisms in the ancient cave. According to the result of Lord Father's deduction, although the ancient cave mansion we are going to is broken, the owner of the cave mansion seems to be a ruthless person, so it should be quite dangerous inside. The purple-robed man's eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke in a rather cautious tone. Oh? Looks like the ancient cave mansion is not simple. However, the more dangerous it is, the more precious the things inside are. I'm afraid this is a good thing for us. The rough man, Su Mu, grinned and said. I heard that my younger brother, Su Chang, and the 9th Commandery Princess have already arrived at Tingjia City. I wonder if they have already found the location of the ancient cavern. However, this time, it is a little strange. Why would a small place like Tingjia City appear in an ancient ruin like the ancient cave mansion? I have never heard of such a low-level city. The purple-robed man was the 9th son of Marquis Mu Qin, who was also the 3rd brother of the 9th Commandery Princess, Lu Yuanhua. At the same time, he was also the true controller of the Purple Gold Door. Although Tingjia City is small, I'm afraid it is not that simple. Lu Yuanhua narrowed his eyes and said something that did not make sense. What do you mean? Based on Brother Yuanhua's words, this Tingjia City does not seem to be simple. Su Mu was stunned. He did not expect Lu Yuanhua to reveal a cautious expression. To be honest. Just now, I sensed that the purple gold door was broken by someone. It is hard for me to imagine that such a person exists in this small Tingjia City. Lu Yuanhua's expression was calm as he spoke in a neutral tone. Oh? Your other high-grade spirit treasure? The power of the purple gold door is not weak, is it? Someone actually broke through the purple gold door's confinement. And you are so sure that the person who broke through the purple gold door must be someone from Tingjia City? Su Mu asked, scratching his head. Humph. As long as it is someone from the commandery capital, there is no one who does not recognize my purple gold door. I don't think anyone has the guts to risk offending the house of Marquis Qin by breaking through my purple gold door. Therefore, only someone from Tingjia City would dare to do such a thing. Lu Yuanhua snorted coldly and said indifferently. If your guess is correct, I'm afraid that the person who broke through the purple gold door is in for a bad time. Looking at Lu Yuanhua, who had a strange expression, Su Mu laughed gloatingly. Inside the purple gold door, Zhuowen looked at the Millennium Stone stele in front of him. He frowned and said, if what you said is true, and there are many good things stored in this Millennium Stone stele, then the 9th Commandery Princess should have already taken them away. Why would we have a chance? Boy, do you know why the Millennium Stone stele was so favored by the big sects 10,000 years ago? One of the reasons was because I told you before. The space inside was almost infinite and could store a large amount of things. The other reason was to keep it a secret. Do you see the symbols on the surface of the stone stele? These symbols are very particular. They contain the password to open the Millennium Stone stele. If the password is not correct, then the restriction in the stone stele will be triggered and attacked by the restriction. Moreover, these runes were all sealed with the blood essence of the previous sect leaders. The power contained within these seals can be described as earth-shattering. I'm afraid that even an ultimate Emperor realm expert would be blasted to smithereens. Therefore, this stone tablet has never been opened before. Xiao He kicked her legs and lightly jumped from Zhuowen's shoulder to the top of the stone stele. It's so terrifying. Could it be that you can open this kind of seal? Zhuowen looked at Xiao He on the stone stele with some hope and asked. He. This Dragon Lord was in existence at the peak of the ancient era. The Millennium Stone stele is nothing to this Dragon Lord. Xiao He put her paws on her waist and said pretentiously. Then hurry up and open it. Don't dilly-dally. Zhuowen directly ignored the pretentious Xiao He and impatiently said. Xiao He was quite displeased with Zhuowen's impatience. However, she still obediently prepared to open the Millennium Stone stele. Xiao He slightly raised her paws and a black light poured out from between her paws and landed on the indescribable symbols on the surface of the stone stele. Sizzle! A faint sound was heard. Soon after, Zhuowen was surprised to see that under the effect of the black light, the symbols on the surface of the stone stele seemed to have come alive. They actually began to wriggle slowly, as if many small tadpoles were twisting and turning. As the symbols wriggled, they actually slowly approached each other under Zhuowen's strange gaze. Finally, they merged together and formed a black hole the size of a human head. Hee hee. Looks like this Dragon Lord's unlocking skills have not deteriorated. Back then, this Dragon Lord relied on this skill to visit the Millennium Stone steles of many sects. At this point, Xiaohei seemed to realize that she had spilled the beans and hurriedly shut her mouth. However, Zhuowen's head was filled with black lines. From Xiaohei's words, Zhuowen could infer that this fellow must have plundered many sects' treasure vaults in the past. Cough cough. Brat, wait outside. This Dragon Lord will go in and take a look to see if there are any good things. Xiaohei dryly coughed a few times and said a few words to Zhuowen before hurriedly entering the black hole. Looking at the black hole on the stone stele that was only the size of a human head, Zhuowen looked at his own body and realized that with his current body, he would not be able to squeeze through the hole. Only then did Zhuowen let out a deep sigh and give up on the idea of entering the stone stele. Fortunately, Zhuowen did not have to wait for long before Xiaohei walked out cursing. This is outrageous. Which sect does this Millennium Stone stele belong to? There was actually such a poor sect in the ancient era. This Dragon Lord is really angry. After coming out of the black hole, Xiaohei cursed again and quieted down. Looking at Xiaohei's expression, Zhuowen also expected that this fellow did not gain much inside. However, he still went over and asked, "What did you find inside? It can't be that you gained nothing, right? That's not it. It's just that the things inside are really pitifully little." Xiaohei cursed again. With a wave of his little paw, some broken things scattered on the ground. Among these broken things, most of them were ink-black crystals. In addition to these crystals, Zhuowen also found a few stalks of elixirs. However, it was a pity that these elixirs did not emit any medicinal power. It was obvious that with the passage of time, the medicinal power of these elixirs had gradually disappeared. In addition to the ink-black crystals and dried-up elixirs, Zhuowen also found a jade slip in the corner of the pile of things. Casually picking it up, Zhuowen used his mental energy to investigate the contents of the jade slip. After a while, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. A dazzling light burst out from his eyes as he muttered to himself, "It's actually a secret spirit skill." Secret spirit skill? It can't be. Kid, your luck is so good. This Dragon Lord casually picked up a secret spirit skill and found it. Xiaohei also heard Zhuowen's muttering and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. The so-called secret mind technique was actually a technique that transformed formless mind power into a tangible attack. Secret spirit skills were different from mental energy tempering techniques. It could be said that the former was hundreds of times rarer than the latter. In the entire continent, the number of arcanists who possessed secret spirit skills was also extremely rare. Moreover, these arcanists who possessed secret spirit techniques were all passed down in their families and were never allowed to pass them on to outsiders. It was because of this rule that secret spirit techniques were extremely rare on the entire continent. Those who possessed secret spirit techniques were mostly arcanists with powerful backgrounds. Chapter 183. 10,000 Yen Sutra. Kid, what's the name of this secret spirit skill that you've obtained? Xiaohei asked while scratching his head as he leaped onto Zhuowen's shoulder. The secret skill is called the 10,000 Yen Sutra. It seems to be a secret skill that can split one's mental energy. It's said that when cultivated to the peak, one can split one's mental energy into tens of thousands of strands. This secret skill that can split one's mental energy doesn't seem to be an offensive technique. As for what it's used for, I'm not too sure. Zhuowen said with some doubt. 10,000 Yen Sutra? No way. Isn't your luck a little too heaven-defying? You actually obtained such a heaven-defying secret spirit skill. Xiaohei's pupils shrank as he shrieked. Is this secret skill that heaven-defying? The doubt on Zhuowen's face became even more intense. No matter how he looked at it, this secret skill that could split one's mental energy was somewhat useless. After all, The more condensed one's mental energy was, the more powerful it would be. If the mental energy was split, then wouldn't the power of the mental energy be greatly reduced? It's more than heaven-defying. It can be said that it's simply abnormal. To tell you the truth, the 10,000 Yen Sutra's true use isn't what you think it is, which is to directly use mental energy to attack. Instead, it's to control puppets to attack indirectly. Xiao He let out a light sigh as if he was suppressing the excitement in his heart. Puppets? Is this secret skill necessarily related to puppets? Zhuowen asked with some confusion. He. Do you know why the 10,000 Yen Sutra is so different from other secret spirit skills? It doesn't focus on condensing one's mental energy. Instead, it continuously splits one's mental energy. Its main purpose is to use these splits of mental energy to control puppets. When you cultivate it to the peak, you'll be able to split your mental energy into tens of thousands. This means that you'll be able to control tens of thousands of puppets by yourself. You don't need me to tell you how much this army of puppets will help you in battle. Xiao He the puppy rolled its eyes at Zhuowen, as if it was telling him that he shouldn't take advantage of the situation. Zhuowen was startled when he heard this. Soon after, a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. He did not expect that the true use of the 10,000 evolution scripture would lie in this aspect. If it was really as Xiao He had said, and the 10,000 evolution scripture was cultivated to the peak, Zhuowen, who could control the 10,000 evolution scripture, could even threaten a huge faction like the Qing Xian Empire. You finally understand the benefits of the myriad derivation scripture. To tell you the truth, this 10,000 amplification scripture came from the 10,000 amplification sect 10,000 years ago. Possessing such a heaven-defying secret spirit skill, all of the disciples of the 10,000 amplification sect were basically experts who could fight against 10,000 people by themselves. Such a sect was so powerful that it was practically invincible 10,000 years ago. If it was not for a traitor appearing in this sect and stealing the 10,000 yen true scripture, the 10,000 yen sect would naturally have slowly declined after losing the 10,000 yen true scripture. Finally, it disappeared into the dust of history. This Dragon Lord did not expect that I would actually be able to see such a peerless secret skill like the 10,000 yen true scripture 10,000 years later. Xiao He the puppy pretended to shake its head and sigh when it spoke till this point. After Xiao He's extremely enticing explanation, Zhuowen's heart immediately became heated. However, he quickly calmed down and asked, since this secret spirit skill is used to control puppets in battle, the problem is that I don't know how to create puppets. Heh. There should be a method to create puppets in the 10,000 yen true scripture. Take a closer look. After all, this Dragon Lord has only heard of the 10,000 yen true scripture back then. I am not very clear about the specifics. Xiao He scratched its head and laughed embarrassedly. After rolling his eyes at Xiao He, Zhuowen once again extended his mental energy into the jade slip and began to carefully examine the contents of the 10,000 yen true scripture. The 10,000 yen true scripture was divided into 3 major chapters, namely the Dao Yen chapter, the Divine Yen chapter, and the Puppet chapter. Among them, the Dao Yen chapter was the basic cultivation method of the 10,000 yen true scripture. It had a complete explanation on how to cultivate the 10,000 yen true scripture. In fact, it was the method to split mental energy. However, the contents of the Divine Yen chapter caused Zhuowen's eyes to light up. It actually explained how to gather the split mental energy in the Dao Yen chapter back into the Sea of Consciousness to strengthen the mental energy in Zhuowen's Sea of Consciousness. After all, if too much mental energy was split out, the burden on the caster's Naiwen Palace would be extremely severe. The Divine Yen chapter was used to reduce this burden. On the other hand, the Puppet chapter described how to create puppets. After reading the Puppet chapter, Zhuowen knew that his worries were unnecessary. There is indeed a Puppet chapter in the 10,000 yen true scripture, and it describes the method to create puppets. Zhuowen sighed softly, and his expression relaxed. He. Sure enough, you brat shouldn't be happy too early. Although this 10,000 evolution scripture is very powerful, it is very difficult and painful to practice. After all, Practicing this secret skill requires you to continuously divide your mental strength. That kind of pain is as if your soul is being torn in half. You must be prepared. Xiao He said in a cautious tone. If you want to obtain great power, you naturally have to pay a corresponding price. I am aware of this. Zhuowen put away the jade slip and said with a faint smile. Speaking of this, Zhuowen turned to look at Xiao He and asked, "But did you find something to repair the soul in the 10,000 stones steel? After all, I entered the purple gold door because of your instigation." Hee. Of course I found it. Although I felt an extremely powerful soul aura when I was outside, when this Dragon Lord entered the 10,000 transformations steel and found this thing, I was greatly surprised. As Blackie spoke, it took out a flower that looked like a withered bone as if it was performing a magic trick. This flower had 4 petals, and each petal was as white as snow like a human finger bone. It looked rather strange and peculiar. Moreover, Zhuowen felt that the closer he got to the flower, the more agitated the mental energy in his Naiwen palace became. It was as if the mental energy could not wait to devour this flower. Hee, boy, you have never seen this before, right? This flower is called the spiritual bone restoration flower, and it is the best spiritual medicine to repair the soul. This medicinal ingredient was extremely rare in the ancient times. This Dragon Lord did not expect to find one in a broken 10,000 transformation steel. Xiao He narrowed its eyes, and its face was filled with a proud smile. Looking at the strangely shaped flower in Xiao He's claws, Zhuowen asked curiously, "After consuming this flower, will your soul be completely restored?" "How can it be so easy? This flower can only restore a layer of this Dragon Lord's soul strength. If you want to completely restore this Dragon Lord, you need to gather at least 4 holy symbols. Only the power of the holy symbols can restore this Dragon Lord's soul." Xiao He rolled its eyes and snorted. "Ah! All right then. Now that we have obtained what we want, we should leave this place." Zhuowen packed up the things under his feet and asked Xiao He. "Yes. We have indeed stayed here long enough. This time, we have obtained quite a bountiful harvest. Not only did we obtain the spiritual bone restoration flower, but you also obtained the 10,000 transformation scripture. This is a great opportunity." Xiao He nodded in agreement. As they spoke, the two of them took a step forward and walked into the endless darkness. They knew that the exit of the purple gold door was right in front of them. At this moment, the entire area was silent. Whether it was the 9th Commandery Princess and the others on the high platform, Liu Tian and the others on the open ground, or the other forces who were watching from below the platform. Everyone stared blankly at the center of the open ground. At the center of the open ground, the purple gold door, which was as tall as a mountain, had become abnormally dim. What was even more surprising was that the dazzling purple gold door had collapsed, revealing a black vortex behind the door. Dang dang dang. Suddenly, the crisp sound of footsteps rang out slowly in the silent open ground. Soon after, a figure vaguely appeared in everyone's line of sight from the black vortex. Bang! When the figure stepped out of the vortex, everyone's attention was focused on him. When they saw the figure's face clearly, they could not help but gasp. This was because the figure was Zhuowen, who had rushed into the purple gold door without hesitation. This guy actually broke through the 9 doors of the purple gold door. How is this possible? On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess finally recovered from her daze. However, her eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief. As a high-level spiritual treasure, the purple gold door was naturally hard. Although the 9th Commandery Princess's strength was quite weak, she could not exert the full power of the purple gold door. However, even if it was only a part of its power, the purple gold door could not be broken through by ordinary warriors. However, this young man in front of her had broken through the purple gold door and appeared in front of everyone unscathed. Even Lingju and Su Chang opened their mouths slightly, as if they had seen a ghost. They stared at the young man in front of them. On the empty ground, Zhuowen also noticed the many gazes gathered on the empty ground. He frowned slightly and threw his gaze towards a slim and elegant young lady on the tall platform. An arc surfaced from the corners of his mouth as his clear voice sounded. Ninth Commandery Princess, I have broken through the purple gold door. Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise. Looking at the smiling young man, the Ninth Commandery Princess bit her red lips and her body trembled slightly. Finally, she curled her lips and announced unwillingly, Zhuowen, you have won the bet this time. Therefore, I will not force you to join the house of Marquis Qin. However, don't regret your choice when the time comes. After saying this, the Ninth Commandery Princess stomped her foot and left the high platform with Lingju and Su Chang. Obviously, the Ninth Commandery Princess was quite upset that she had lost the bet. Naturally, she could not stay here any longer. Wow! When the Ninth Commandery Princess finally announced the result, everyone on and off the platform cheered excitedly. Everyone looked at the young man standing quietly in the middle of the open ground with fanaticism. It was undeniable that the young man in front of them had created so many surprises in this competition. At the same time, Zhuowen's performance had finally won over everyone's hearts. After this competition, I'm afraid that this young man will become famous in the entire Rattan Armor City. In the corner of the open ground, looking at the figure on the open ground and hearing the mixed cheers, a gratified smile appeared on his face. Gu Xian, who was standing beside him, looked quite gloomy. However, the gloominess was quickly replaced by determination. She said softly, Father, I will go into closed-door training. I will not come out until I break through to the human king realm. Chapter 184. Strange black crystals. Following the conclusion of the competition for the quota, Zhuowen's reputation spread at an extremely fast speed. Because of this, many warriors with decent strength came to join the Zhuo family. It was precisely because of Zhuowen's great prestige that even some powerful forces had joined the Zhuo family out of admiration. In this way, Zhuowen's power had once again increased explosively. The Zhuo family's power and resources could faintly compare to the Castellan's palace. Now, they were publicly recognized as the second most powerful force in Rattan Armor City. Seeing the Zhuo family develop like a raging fire, Elder Zhuo Xiangding couldn't stop smiling all day. He knew that all of this was because of his grandson, Zhuowen. Therefore, he was proud to have a grandson like Zhuowen. Occasionally, when he talked about Zhuowen, his face was full of pride. Zhuowen's deeds were widely spread among the younger generation of the family. Many of the younger generation revealed expressions of worship and reverence when they mentioned the name of Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen was only a few years older than them, Zhuowen's strength was already something that they could only look up to. As for Zhuowen, who was the main character this time, he went into seclusion once again after the fight for the quota. Since Zhuowen had helped the city lord's mansion to turn the tide, Guyu Tian was naturally overjoyed. He specially rewarded Zhuowen with many spiritual medicines and armor skills. Guyu Tian even generously gave Zhuowen a low-grade spiritual treasure. As the Castellan of Rattan Armor City, Guyu Tian knew how to conduct himself. He also knew that Zhuowen's dragon vein saber was damaged in the battle with Wang Yuanqing, so he gave him a low-grade spiritual treasure. It had to be said that Guyu Tian was extremely benevolent. In a spacious training room, a young man with a delicate face was sitting upright on the ground with his back straight. His nose was puffing up and down as waves of surging yuan power continuously surged within his body. When the yuan power reached its peak, the young man's body suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light. Then, a muffled thunder-like sound was emitted from his body. Following that, a wave of air immediately surged around the young man's body. The surrounding tables and chairs were instantly sent flying in all directions under the influence of this wave of air. At this moment, the young man's eyes slightly opened. A dazzling golden light suddenly erupted from his pitch-black pupils. After the many battles in the competition for the spots, my comprehension has deepened by quite a bit. In addition to the supply of medicinal pills these few days, my cultivation has finally improved by another step. Zhuowen stood up slightly. His lips moved slightly as he muttered to himself. A Shaohei dog slowly floated in the air and glanced at Zhuowen. You've advanced to the 7th stage of corporeal yang. Zhuo faintly nodded his head. With a slightly hesitant expression, he said, "The competition for the slots has already ended. This also means that in 2 years' time, I will have to participate in the cruel elemental pagoda battle. In order to be able to enter the Divine Academy, I must win the elemental pagoda battle. So you feel that your current strength is still too weak?" Xiao He crossed its paws and examined the young man below. "Yes. Therefore, I have decided to enter the ancient cave mansion. Perhaps I will be able to obtain a great opportunity inside. Right now, I need to constantly strengthen myself. Only then will I be able to stand out in the Yuan-Chi Tower battle where geniuses will gather in 2 years. The current me is still not enough." Taking a deep breath, Zhuo suddenly raised his voice and said. Xiao He was slightly taken aback. Soon after, it chuckled and said, "Kid, you're quite bold. Even this Dragon Lord did not sense the ancient cave that exists in the Heaven Fiend's eye. Clearly, this cave itself is not simple. There must be many good things inside. Of course, this also means that it is even more dangerous inside. With your current strength, it will be a bit difficult for you to enter the cave. I know, but I still have to give it a try. Moreover, according to the rumors outside, there is still a month's time to open the ancient cave. At that time, the cave's restriction will be at its weakest and the experts sent by the 3 marquises will join forces to break the restriction of the cave. Therefore, I still have a month's time." Zhuo was not dejected by Xiao He's sarcastic words. Instead, he spoke in a firm tone. "A month's time is too short. Even if you cultivate day and night, you won't be able to improve much. Or rather, you plan to start cultivating the myriad evolution scripture." Xiao He rubbed its chin and said with a glare. Zhuo nodded slightly and said, "At present, I can only rely on the myriad evolution scripture. In this month's time, I should be able to use the myriad evolution scripture to divide my mental energy into 2. Also, I can rely on the puppet chapter to create a powerful puppet." At this point, Zhuo suddenly patted his Chinquan bag and took out a pile of ink-black crystals. He stared at Xiao He and said, "Previously, you found the myriad evolution scripture, spiritual bone restoration flower, and this strange ink-black crystal in the myriad stone steel. The first 2 are treasures, but what is this black crystal?" Xiao He was slightly embarrassed and said, "This Dragon Lord does not recognize this crystal, but I can feel that this black crystal is unusual. This is also the reason why I brought it out of the myriad stone steel." "Unusual?" Zhuo asked doubtfully. "This kind of crystal is able to emit a kind of strange mental energy fluctuation. This fluctuation is very similar to that of a living creature. However, if one were to carefully sense it, there is a certain difference between it and a living creature. It is this strange fluctuation that this Dragon Lord brought it out. Perhaps, this thing could be a treasure." Xiao He scratched his head and laughed awkwardly. Zhuo was speechless as he looked at the flickering eyes of the little black dog in front of him. After interacting with it for such a long time, Zhuo was naturally aware of Little Black's character. This fellow did not look like a dragon at all. Moreover, it loved to act pretentiously and would often drop the ball at critical moments. It was likely that this black crystal was taken away by Xiao He when he saw that there was too little profit in the myriad stone steel. In any case, it was just for show. Although he had malicious thoughts about Xiao He in his heart, Zhuo still seriously observed the black crystal beside his feet. Every piece of the black crystal was the size of a palm, and there were dozens of them. They were piled up like a small mountain beside his feet. Moreover, there were no strange fluctuations on the surface of the crystal. They looked very ordinary. If one did not pay attention, it was very likely that they would be treated as ordinary stones by others. Although the black crystal looked very ordinary, Zhuo had an intuition that this black crystal was not simple. If I inject my mental energy, I wonder if there will be any changes. After muttering to himself for a while, Zhuo suddenly mobilized the mental energy in his Naiwan palace and rushed toward the black crystal below. Soon after, the latter was completely wrapped in it. "Brat! Do you really think that this black crystal is a treasure?" This Dragon Lord was just scaring you. I have already checked it. No matter how you look at it, this crystal is no different from an ordinary stone. Moreover, Xiao He sneered. Looking at Zhuowen's serious expression, its face was filled with a gloating smile. However, its smile did not last for long as it froze. Then, its eyes widened as it stared straight at the black crystal below. After Zhuowen used his mental energy to completely wrap the black crystal below his feet, the crystal did not have any reaction at first. Naturally, Zhuowen's face revealed an expression of as expected. Just as Zhuowen was about to give up, the black crystal beside his feet suddenly began to tremble under the effect of his mental energy. It was as if there was a strange magnetic field around the crystal that was constantly exerting a magnetic force. There's movement. The black crystal seems to be absorbing my mental energy. Zhuowen's eyes flashed as he cried out in surprise. Ah! There's really a reaction. Did this Dragon Lord see wrongly? Could this unassuming black crystal really be a treasure? Xiao He also saw the strange state of the black crystal and its expression changed slightly as it asked. Swoosh! At this moment, the small mountain of black crystals on the ground began to tremble violently. Then, under Zhuowen's astonished gaze, they actually began to float. This is... As he stared at the black crystals suspended in midair, Zhuowen was stunned for a while before he spat out this word. However, he quickly realized that as the black crystals suspended in midair, an extremely strong suction force was immediately emitted from the crystal. Soon after, the mental energy in his Naiwen palace was continuously being absorbed by the black crystal at a terrifying speed. What's going on? The black crystal is actually still absorbing my mental energy. As he felt his Naiwen palace continuously losing mental energy, Zhuowen began to panic. The rate at which the black crystal was absorbing mental energy had reached an astonishing level. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen's mental energy in his Naiwen palace had been depleted by 1/10. At this rate, in less than 15 minutes, Zhuowen's mental energy would be completely sucked dry. Then, his Naiwen palace would be crippled and his mental energy would cease to exist. If it really reached that stage, the grade 2 mental energy that Zhuowen had painstakingly cultivated would be wasted. In fact, it would even affect his spiritual energy. Xiao He, what's going on? If I allow it to continue absorbing my mental energy, I will be crippled. Zhuowen's face was filled with fear as he stared at the black crystal suspended in front of him. In just an instant, more than half of the mental energy in his Naiwen palace had been sucked away. Now, there was less than half left. At this moment, Xiao He's expression was extremely grim. This was the first time it had encountered such a situation. Even though it wanted to stop it, it was completely unable to do so. This process of forcefully absorbing mental energy was extremely dangerous. If it interfered and interrupted it, Zhuowen's sea of consciousness would very likely be devoured by the absorption force, which would then cause damage to his spiritual energy. As he watched the mental energy in his Naiwen palace depleting bit by bit, a trace of despair surfaced in Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that once the mental energy in his Naiwen palace was completely absorbed, the damage to his spiritual energy would be extremely great. Even his current martial way level might drop. Chapter 185. Reverse Spirit Puppet Whoosh. The subtle sound seemed to be quite loud in the empty room. The black crystals that were gathered together in mid-air were like melting ice at this moment, and began to become sticky, turning into a ball of unknown sticky substance. Plop! A heartbeat-like sound slowly rang out. Then, the black viscous substance in the air started to fluctuate, as if there was a living thing trapped within it that was constantly struggling. As it continued to struggle, the sticky substance in the air began to change and gradually took on a human form. An ink-black light burst out from the viscous object. Finally, the viscous object's transformation finally stabilized. Following which, a human figure was completely revealed in front of Zhuowen. This is a puppet? Looking at the figure that finally appeared in front of him, Zhuowen could not help but be stunned. Then, he could not help but ask. What appeared in front of Zhuowen was indeed a human figure. Moreover, this human figure had regular facial features and a tall figure. It was covered in thick, ink-black armor and held two square hammers in its hands. Just by standing there, it was already taller than Zhuowen by a head. Moreover, Zhuowen could sense an extremely dangerous aura emanating from the human figure in front of him. However, the burly man's face was stiff and his eyes were dull. It was as if he was just a shell without a soul. At this time, Xiaohei leaped onto Zhuowen's shoulder. Her small black eyes contained a trace of surprise. After pondering for a while, she exclaimed, "The black crystal can actually turn into a puppet. Could it be a reverse spirit puppet? And those black crystals are the legendary reverse spirit crystals? Reverse spirit puppet, reverse spirit crystal. What are these two things?" Zhuowen tilted his head and asked doubtfully. "Looks like the 10,000 stone steel inside the purple gold gate is not simple. Not only did it contain the myriad expansion scripture and the spirit resurrection bone flower, but it also contained the even rarer reverse spirit crystal. It seems that the owner of the myriad transformation steel is quite extraordinary." Xiaohei's face was filled with caution. It was obvious that this so-called reverse spirit puppet had a great origin. "Brat! You should have studied the myriad evolution scripture, so you should have some understanding of puppets. Naturally, materials are needed to make puppets, but the materials for making puppets are quite rare. The reverse spirit crystal is one of the materials for making puppets, and it's a top-grade material. It is said that puppets made with reverse spirit crystals not only have extremely powerful combat power, but also have a special characteristic, which is immortality. In other words, even if this kind of puppet is blown to pieces by a powerful attack, as long as a certain amount of mental strength is supplied, then it will reassemble and be as good as new. Its immortality characteristic can be said to be the best material to make puppets. It's no wonder that the reverse spirit crystal absorbed your spiritual power and turned into a complete puppet." As Xiaohei spoke up to this point, he glanced once again at the dumbfounded puppet not too far away. His eyes burned with passion as he continued, "Kid. Even this Dragon Lord is rather envious of your fortuitous encounter. Not only did you obtain the myriad evolution scripture, which was extremely powerful even in ancient times, but now you've also obtained a powerful reverse spirit puppet." After listening to Xiaohei's description, Zhuowen also knew that the so-called reverse spirit puppet in front of him seemed to be very powerful. He couldn't help but feel excited. He smacked his lips and asked, "Then what kind of strength does this reverse spirit puppet have?" "Hee. To tell you the truth, the strength of each reverse spirit puppet is basically around the ultimate emperor realm. However, due to the immortality characteristic of this thing, if you have 10 reverse spirit puppets, even 4 supremacy realm experts may not be able to do anything to the puppet controller." Xiaohei chuckled and glanced at Zhuowen, who was in shock, and gave the latter a look that said, "Kid, you're taking advantage of me. Ultimate Emperor Realm? It's actually so powerful?" When Zhuowen heard Xiaohei's words, he was truly shocked. He didn't expect that this seemingly ordinary puppet in front of him would actually be so powerful. Now that he had this puppet, didn't that mean that he was practically invincible in Rattan Armor City? Even in the entire Muqin County, with an Ultimate Emperor Realm puppet, he could already enter the ranks of the top experts. When Xiaohei saw the increasingly excited expression on Zhuowen's face, the corners of his mouth suddenly curled into a sly smile. "Kid, you've got a pretty good plan, haven't you? However, this Dragon Lord can regretfully tell you that this reverse spirit puppet is a defective product. Its strength is much weaker than a complete reverse spirit puppet." When Zhuowen heard this, he angrily glared at Xiaohei, who was gloating over his misfortune, and gnashed his teeth. This guy was definitely doing this on purpose. At the beginning, he had said that the reverse spirit puppet was so powerful, but now he was saying that this puppet was a defective product. He was obviously toying with him. Since it's a defective product, doesn't that mean that it doesn't have any power? Since he heard that this puppet was a defective product, Zhuowen immediately lost interest. Hee. Even if it's a defective product, this Dragon Lord estimates that this puppet has the strength of an Earth King stage practitioner. After all, the body of a reverse spirit puppet is indestructible. Just by relying on the quality of its body, it can forcefully resist an Earth King stage practitioner. It can even put up a fight against a Heavenly King stage practitioner. Xiao He stopped joking and said rather seriously, "Oh? A defective product has the strength of an Earth King stage practitioner. It seems that this puppet is indeed not simple. Although it did not reach my expectations, with this puppet, I have more confidence in entering the ancient Era's cave." Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of confidence flashed across his brows. If it was said that he did not have the slightest confidence in entering the ancient Era's cave at the beginning, now that he had obtained this reverse spirit puppet, it could be said that he had a certain degree of confidence. And most importantly, this reverse spirit puppet still has room for improvement. Kid, the reason why this reverse spirit puppet is a defective product is because there are a few missing materials in the puppet's manufacturing process, resulting in a decrease in its power. If you have the chance in the future, look for some materials to increase the power of this puppet. Xiao He said as his eyes turned. Slightly nodding his head, Zhuowen also understood what Xiao He said. Moreover, in the puppet chapter of the Myriad Yen scripture, there was an introduction to the manufacturing method of a reverse spirit puppet. However, the materials mentioned in the Myriad Yen scripture were either too precious, or Zhuowen had never heard of them. Therefore, even if Zhuowen wanted to increase the power of the puppet now, there was no way for him to do so. Zhuowen knew that there was still a long way to go to perfect the reverse spirit puppet. Let's not think about this for now. Let's study the Myriad Yen scripture first. This kind of secret spirit skill is not easy to cultivate. Slightly shaking his head, Zhuowen kept the reverse spirit puppet in front of him into his Qianquan bag. Immediately after, he took out the jade strip and began to silently study the mystery of the Myriad Yen scripture. Seeing that Zhuowen had begun to cultivate, Xiao He naturally did not want to disturb him. Hence, he turned into a black light and disappeared between Zhuowen's eyebrows. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, Zhuowen basically stayed in his room to study the Myriad Yen scripture. It had to be said that the Myriad Yen scripture was indeed very mysterious. Even if Zhuowen used all of his skills, he still had some understanding of it. In fact, the secret of the Myriad Yen scripture was to continuously divide. The first step was to divide the mental energy in the Naiwen Palace into 2. As the saying goes, 1 gives birth to 2, 2 gives birth to 4, 4 gives birth to 8, and so on until there were thousands of divisions. It could be said that there was basically no shortcut to cultivating this kind of secret spirit skill. One could only cultivate step by step and accumulate over an endless amount of time. Sunlight passed through the gaps in the window and finally landed on the body of a young man. At this moment, the young man's breathing was quite rapid. Moreover, his eyes were tightly shut, and beads of sweat were falling down his cheeks. It was as if raindrops were hitting the ground, emitting a clear sound. This kid, he's planning to divide the mental energy in the Naiwen Palace into 2 again. In these 3 days, how many times has it been? Even I can't keep count anymore. Xiao He muttered to himself with a sigh as he floated in midair and silently looked down at the young man whose face was filled with pain. During these 3 days, the young man had continuously tried to divide the mental energy in the Naiwen Palace into 2. He would try again after he failed, and he would try again after he failed again. This repeated over and over again. In these 3 days, this kind of attempt was not uncommon. In Xiao He's impression, Zhuowen had at least experienced this kind of attempt thousands of times. It should be known that the pain of dividing one's mental energy was akin to tearing one's nerves. That kind of pain was akin to being in hell. If an ordinary person tried it once, they would probably collapse. However, the young man in front of him had experienced this level of pain at least thousands of times. Even so, the young man did not give up and continued to try and endure the pain. Even the experienced Xiao He could not help but admire his tenacious willpower and terrifying endurance. Creak! A soft sound suddenly rang out. Xiao He looked over and discovered that the corner of the young man's mouth was actually dripping with cherry red blood. Furthermore, there was a hideous wound on the corner of his lips. It was caused by biting his lips too hard due to the extreme pain. This kid is too hard-working. Looking at the young man who had bitten his lips, Xiao He could not help but shake his head and sigh. However, his eyes were filled with a complicated expression. At this moment, a golden light suddenly flashed between the young man's brows. Soon after, this golden light fiercely shot out from between his brows and finally stopped 2 inches away from the young man as it quietly floated in midair. Chi-chi! An indescribable sound rang out. The young man, whose eyes were tightly shut, suddenly used his right hand as a sword and gently drew a line at the golden light in front of him. Following which, Xiao He was shocked to discover that the thumb-sized golden light had actually split into 2. The instant the golden light split into 2, the young man in front of him suddenly groaned and spat out a large mouthful of blood. His delicate and pretty face instantly became extremely pale. After spitting out the blood, the young man's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. He stared at the golden light that had split into 2 not far away. A satisfied smile appeared on the young man's pale face as he muttered to himself, "I've finally succeeded. Now that my mental energy has split into 2, my 10,000 expansion scripture can be considered to have truly entered the door."